And hello, everyone, and welcome to Uncivil Law, where we learn through the misfortunes of others. As always, I am your host, Uncivil Law, and we are here continuing with our coverage of the Alex Murdaugh trial in South Carolina, in the great city of Walterboro. We are here continuing with the double murder trial of Alex Murdaugh, who is accused of killing his wife and son, apparently out of some combination of shame out of what his son did, because his son had committed a vehicular manslaughter with a drunken boating accident. And also he had apparently, Alex Murdaugh himself had also been stealing apparently $10 million from his clients. And that information was becoming exposed because he was involved in the civil lawsuit relating from the boating accident. As the owner of the boat, he would potentially have some liability. So they were digging into Alex Murdaugh's books. And it seems like the house of cards that was the financial fraud was threatened to be exposed. So he was doing increasingly dangerous stuff to try to get out of that problem, including by hiring a hitman to assassinate him for life insurance money, which obviously didn't happen because he's alive, and ultimately apparently resulting in the murders of his wife and son out of some sense of shame, as part of a cover-up, because they confronted him, because whatever. That seems to be the idea of what's going on. And glory upon glories, my friends, we have all three on screen at the same time. The trifecta has finally occurred. We have seal, clock, and chandelier. I know. This is amazing. This is amazeballs. We have all three on screen at the same time in their glories. Seal, clock, and chandelier. We can bask in their mutual greatness. I'm going to have to take it off screen because this is simply too hot for YouTube. I don't think we can have this much sexiness on screen in accordance with YouTube guidelines. So, content warning may contain seal, clock, and chandelier. So that is what we're doing today. Yesterday, so far in this trial, what we have seen is the jury selection. We did all that, and then we heard the jury get sworn in, and then yesterday we started with the opening arguments and the theories of the case. And it seems like both sides feel like they are starting from a disadvantage, which in the context of the defense certainly makes sense, because if you're accused of double murder, people come into some presumption like this is probably the guy. So there is definitely some presumption against you. You might be presumed innocent by law, but by people, So there's that. But the state also seemed to think it has weaknesses in the case, and it seems to, because it doesn't have the gun. It doesn't have the gun that was reportedly done with the murders. The clothing that Alex Murdaugh was apparently wearing at the time doesn't have any blood on it, despite the fact the state's theory is that this shotgun blast occurred within a closet, presumably a large walk-in closet. And at that close range, if you kill someone with a shotgun, one would think that blood is going to get everywhere. And blood is everywhere inside the closet. The state's theory seems to be that Alex Murdaugh was wearing some sort of raincoat or poncho or something, but okay. And maybe the raincoat, poncho, jacket thing has gunpowder on the inside of the jacket, which I don't know what that's supposed to mean, because that doesn't really make sense. If there's gunpowder on the inside of the jacket, how is there not blood on the inside of the jacket? How does that work? How do you get gunshot residue on the inside but not the blood? I don't know. Maybe they will tell us. But things are a little bit, they are not great. We don't have any eyewitnesses. We don't really have any forensics from Murdaugh that put him on the scene. We don't have his fingerprints on the shell casings. We don't have, I think, his blood at the scene at all, or at least not like that. We don't have anything. We have some cell phone data that puts him near the scene roughly during the time of the murder. But then again, he's not necessarily denying that, because he called 911 to report the murder. So he was obviously there in close temporal proximity. So the state's case, I don't know. So far, I'm not getting the we don't have anything like what we've had in other cases where we've done these cases. We don't have any sort of, oh my God, we've lost clock and now it's just chandelier and seal. Why did clock lose? Is there an American Beauty contest or American Idol contest where we're eliminating things one by one? Did clock underperform? Did it not please the judges? I thought clock's performance was great. It was regular and operating and telling time. I guess that we're just not into that genre of clock right now. I guess the judges are just feeling that clock, even though its performance was technically perfect, was just a little tired and banal. And now we're off to the seal and chandelier. Which of these contestants will be lost? Or will clock make a surprise reappearance and challenge these people for the crown? Stay tuned for American Idol. But we have some weaknesses in the state's case for sure. We will see what's going on. Now, the best evidence the state seems to have available to them at the moment is that the ammo that was used in the murder seems to be the same brand of ammo that Alex Murdaugh uses. Alex Murdaugh himself has like a gun safe at his home. He has a huge property, and he has they use it for hunting and target ranges. So they have spent brass that purports to be from Alex Murdaugh's guns, and they have spent brass that purports to be from the murder. Those match in terms of the ammunition type, manufacture. They're also claiming they can match them to the same gun that they don't have. They claim that they can tell from the force of the projectile being expelled from the gunshot that is obviously a very violent action. And because mechanical parts get worn out over time, we can tell through some combination of the extractor markings, the firing pin markings, and other markings, we can tell that these came from the same unique firearm. But we were a little bit dubious on some of that because we heard some of that in the preliminaries. And the guy also said he could tell that, if I understood him right, he said that he could tell that even if the gun wasn't fired. So even if you simply loaded the round and ejected it, you could have enough unique markings, which seemed odd. So dubious, but that seems to be the best evidence. The best evidence they have is spent casings that purport to be from the gun they don't have, that they obtained from Alex Murdaugh's shooting range, that also match the rounds that were used in the murder in ammunition type, brand, and apparently forensic markings that tie them together. And also that Alex Murdaugh apparently denied being on the scene at some point that is relevant to the timeline, but they have cell phone data and Snapchat data that puts him on the scene. So we will see how it all goes.
Good morning.
Oh dear. Let me turn down the volume before it blows up my ears. So we are now here with the state's opening of its case. We're going to actually hear some witnesses and we'll start assessing what we know. What's going on?
At 5:52 p.m. yesterday.
Email.
By someone by the name of Chris Wilson, who I don't know whether it's the Chris Wilson who's on the witness list or not, complaining about the violation of my court order prohibiting the disclosure of the identity of jurors. Did not respond to the email, and I'll make the email a part of the record in the case. If counsel can look at it if you like.
So random emails being sent. So we'll have a little powwow over the emails being sent by parties unknown. courtroom doesn't look like it's packed. It looks like there's space there. So that's notable. So yeah, I feel like the court feed is soft. I can turn it up a little bit. It was just blowing out my ear. I can also turn down my own personal volume a little bit. It's soft for you. So I'll turn down the volume on the thing and turn up the volume on the stream. Trying to get the volumes right is always a fun trick over here in streaming world. By the way, for the 300 of you who are here right now, I just want to say thank you very much for choosing to spend some of your time here on Uncivil Law. If I could ask you to please be so kind as to retweet the pinned comment in YouTube. It is the tweet for this morning's stream. It will be the most helpful thing you can do, I think, to help bring attention to the channel and attention to the stream. So if I could please ask you to do some engagement by just simply clicking that pinned link and hitting retweet. And if you don't have Twitter, then you can hit the share button below the stream and share it to your social media of choice. But I believe that sharing it to Twitter will probably be the best thing that is possible for the channel. So if you could do that, it would be really, really appreciated. Thank you. No Rumble. We weren't able to get it set up.
Of course, exhibit number 2. No,
because apparently I have to come up with some sort of like...
state or the defense?
No, Your Honor, none from Ms. Murdaugh.
None from the state, Your Honor.
No.
Apparently I have to come up with some sort of like placeholder video, and I have to like create one. Thank you, Lingus, for saying you enjoyed me on Rakita's stream. I had a lot of fun. That was great, other than the hour and the fact that it didn't leave me as much sleep as I would ideally like. It was a lot of
before
fun.
the jury comes.
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
Your Honor, the video he's about to show has, I believe, and I believe he agrees, images which are under the order signed by you. And so as they're being proposed to be shown, if I have something or he has something, we're going to, obviously under that order, we have to disclose that to you. And if you approve the showing, we've got some logistical issues. If you give me just a minute, these monitors are, that one is not working, but this monitor is viewable from the audience, and we'd like to cover it up with some MacGyver-like device that's been developed by Mr. Waters, where you tape paper we can flip back and forth. So if somebody has some tape, I'd like to do that before he begins so that nothing's shown back there like an involvement. You got paper too? I'm sorry.
So apparently we're now doing Arts and Crafts Hour over here in Walterboro. We're doing Arts and Crafts. We've got some tape and we've got some paper, and we're going to use it to cover up some monitors. Okay. Fine. I'm not exactly sure why. I guess we're trying to prevent the gallery from seeing it because we're covering up the monitors, which obviously doesn't in and of itself prevent it from showing up on the feed. That would have to be done separately, obviously. Just because you cover up the monitor doesn't prevent it from being on the feed, right? They do know that, right? So they're blocking images on the monitors. They obviously know what the images are, so they're not blocking it for them. So the only thing that makes sense is they're blocking it for the gallery, I guess, which doesn't really work. I don't understand. I'm not 100% sure what's going on right now, to be quite honest.
You may bring the jury.
I need to turn it down more in my ear. That is loud in my ear. I'll tell you what, the one thing that we got going on. Oh my God, Chandelier is back. Woo! Woo! Chandelier. 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 I want to swing on the chandelier, that is one sexy ass chandelier. Yeah. And yes, also as someone pointed out in chat, there were apparently sound problems with the sound in the court audio yesterday. So I don't know if those problems have been resolved, or the prosecutor threatened to bring a guitar amp and use a guitar amp to play the audio. So I'm not sure which of those universes we're in, but yeah. Chandelier was made for Seal because chandelier helps bring light to Seal. I think that chandelier and Seal are having a romantic relationship, and I think that chandelier is trying to be, or at least maybe it's a wannabe romantic relationship, because chandelier has brought itself down from the ceiling to help make sure that its light will reach Seal first, compared to other things and other lights that might be in the courtroom, in the ceiling, for example. So it's like, no, I'm not going to be in the ceiling. I'm going to be hung from the ceiling so that I am closer to Seal. So maybe it's trying to, and it's rather than just be one light bulb, I have 6. So maybe is chandelier try hard? Is chandelier try hard wannabe relationship with Seal? Is Seal giving chandelier the cold shoulder? Chandelier's like, thanks for the light and all, but I'm going home with Chad, which is a completely different light altogether. $20 for the Vegas fund. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Vegas Fund.
Thank you very much for your kind super chat.
Good morning. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for day number 4 of this session of court, day number 2 of this trial. As I instructed you prior to us commencing yesterday with the
Seal is going home with clock.
You're not to listen, watch, or
They're both
read
round.
any news accounts of this case,
They
or
both
discuss
have
it with
hash
anyone, or
marks
allow anyone to
around their
discuss it with you,
circumference.
or in your presence. Has that occurred as to any jurors? All right, very good. It's very important that you keep that, follow that instruction. I know that many of you are not accustomed to sitting for long periods of time, and certainly not in settings like this. But if at any time you need a break, notify the bailiff, who will bring it to my attention, or raise your hand so that I can see, and we'll take a break at any time any juror would need a break, or any court participant for that matter. And we're ready to proceed by the state.
Yes, we are, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, the state would call Sergeant Daniel Green.
Sergeant Daniel Green. That's a good name. That's a good name for a first witness. Daniel looking sharp here in his blue pants and charcoal sports coat. Daniel is styling here. White shirt,
You'll raise your right hand for me.
blue tie.
Do solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you
Looking
give to
good,
the court in this trial
Sergeant.
will be the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. You may have a seat. Adjust that microphone so that it fits you comfortably. And if you'll state your name and spell your last name for the record.
My full name is Daniel Green. My last name Greene.
Sergeant Green, how you doing today?
I'm good.
All right, tell us where you work.
I work for the Carlton County Sheriff's Office.
Okay, and your rank is sergeant, obviously, is that correct?
That's correct.
Tell us just a little bit about yourself. Just give us just a little bit of your background that led you to your career in law enforcement.
That way, if I talk over
Sure.
it, it's captured.
I went to school here, grew up here, Went to college at Charleston Southern University. I got a degree in social studies education, taught for a little while, and then got into law enforcement. Just kind of fell into it and liked it. And I've been here since 2014.
Okay. You started with the Sheriff's Department in 2014?
That's correct.
All right, and what was your first job that you did, or how does your career progress?
I started at the jail. I worked there for just over a year, and then I was moved to the road patrol. I was on road patrol for several years. Moved up the ranks to sergeant, where I was a road patrol supervisor, and now I'm a detective.
When did you become detective?
Earlier
I'll put it back up
last
there.
year. It would have been
Please
June of
retweet
last
my
year.
thing. I'm going to change it.
Back in June of 2021, what was your job at that particular time with the Sheriff's Department?
In June of 2021, I was a road patrol sergeant supervisor.
All right, and explain how that works.
I'm
What's
too
your,
soft? I
what's
can
your
turn my
exact
volume.
role as a sergeant?
Thank you for
in
letting
road
me know. The
patrol
volume levels are always tricky.
So for the most part, I'm assigned a team consisting of 3 to 4 deputies, just depends. That include a corporal as well as several other deputies. My job primarily is to supervise them in their in a 12-hour shift. We answer calls for service. Sometimes I'll go with other deputies to calls that require more than one officer to be present.
Lower the cord a tiny bit?
And
Sure.
the majority of my job is supervising what they do.
Where's the audio low?
During June of 2021, were you working day shift or night shift, or how did
Okay,
that work?
cool.
I was on night shift at that point.
And what are the hours of the night shift?
So we swap every 2 months. So 2 months you'll be on days, 2 months you'll be on nights. For those hours, it's 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 6 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Okay. And let me take you to the evening of June 7th, 2021. Were you working that particular evening?
I was.
And what shift were you working that day?
We were on night shift,
And again, so what hours would that be?
working from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m.
So you went on duty at 6 p.m., is that
I did,
correct?
yeah.
Okay. And you said you're the sergeant. What was do you have a squad that you're supervising that are out during that shift? Explain that to the jury, if you would, please.
So that shift consisted of myself being the sergeant. I had a corporal and 2 deputies working as well.
Let's see.
And at that point, I had a lieutenant who was my
me
immediate
spell
supervisor.
testifying correct.
He was working as well.
All right, and again, you tell me who those people were?
Sure. So my corporal was Corporal Janicki, and the 2 deputies working with me were Deputy William Pruitt and Deputy Chad McDowell.
And the lieutenant was who?
Lieutenant Lonnie Nettles.
Did you, on the evening of June 7th, 2021, get a call for service at 4147 Moselle Road?
I did.
And you remember approximately what time that was?
It was later in the evening, several hours into my shift.
Okay. And did you ultimately respond to that location?
I did.
What was reported to you that led to the call for service from dispatch?
That there was a caller who stated he had found his wife and son shot.
And so tell me what happens then. You get that report, what do you do?
So I get that call for service. Obviously, we immediately respond. In situations like that, we would respond with lights and sirens to get there as quickly as possible.
You're driving fast to get there?
Did I
Yes.
put it on text? I wonder.
Lights are on?
Lights were on, siren was on. I think it still took me close to 20 minutes to actually get to the scene from where I was.
You have to ask dispatch to clarify the address?
I did. Once I got out there, it's a very dark area, very rural area on Moselle Road. There were not a whole lot of residences in the area, and I did need clarification once I got out there to confirm the address. Then I located the address on a mailbox across the street from a driveway.
The
Wahahaha.
mailbox in the driveway you entered, is that correct?
That's correct.
The driveway that you entered that had this mailbox, where did it ultimately lead? What structures were there as you pulled up to the scene?
As I pulled down the long driveway, when I got to the end of it, there was a dog kennel area on the left as well as a shed area on the right.
And that was the driveway with the mailbox, correct?
That was.
Is this location where the scene was, is it in Colleton County?
It is.
Tell me just a little bit before we get into more specifics. What was the, you said it was dark. What was the weather like? What was the conditions of the scene or the weather in the scene like?
So quite normal for June around here. It's rather hot and humid. It had been raining a little bit off and on that evening. It was not raining at the time that I actually responded to the scene.
Were you the first law enforcement officer or first responder on the scene?
I was.
Were there others, other first responders following close behind?
The additional first responder that was directly behind me worked for Colleton County Fire Rescue. He pulled in almost the same time I did.
When you would arrive at the scene, before we talk about what you actually experienced at this scene, what is your main job at a scene like this? What are you there to do as a first responder, the first officer on the scene?
So a major crime scene like that, my job is to get there, secure the scene, and what I mean by secure the scene is ensure that there are no individuals there that would potentially cause harm to additional first responders coming there or any witnesses or victims that are already on scene. Preserve any evidence that might be there, and then wait for investigators to arrive as I gather information from anybody else that is already on scene.
Okay. So you're going to gather basic information, but your job's not to investigate it in great detail.
That's correct.
Okay. As you arrived at this scene, again, what had been reported to you by dispatch?
That a male caller had called and said he found his wife and son shot.
And from that report to you, about how long did it take you to ultimately make it onto the scene?
It was roughly about 20 minutes.
Okay. When you arrived on scene, when you said one of the things that you do is secure the scene, were you at all concerned about any perpetrators still being there at that point in time?
When I arrived, not necessarily, just because he had already been there for quite a while. Whenever he called, it seemed, the way the call came in, that he discovered them like that and that there was nobody else there other than him and the wife and son.
So you're the first officer on scene, but you're not thinking the perpetrators are still there?
It's something you have to keep in the back of your mind, but not necessarily at the forefront.
Okay. All right. You didn't come in hot with guns drawn or anything like that?
No.
When you arrived at the scene and you walked and got out of your car, what did you see?
So as soon as I got out of my vehicle, I was walking down the rest of the driveway, which went between the dog kennel and the shed. As I could see Mr. Murdaugh down at the end of the driveway. As I approached toward him, I could see the male victim laying on the ground to my left, as well as the female victim on the ground to my right.
State direct
Male
instead of
victim
now
was
testifying?
Close to a small
Okay,
shed
that
with a
works.
dog kennel on the left. There was a large deal of blood that had pooled around his body. Same thing for the female victim on the right. Also a large amount of blood around her body.
As you approached and at first saw the male victim and the female victim, what was your assessment? Was there any possible signs of life from your...
My initial assessment was that there was not. There appeared to be a large amount of blood around each of them, as well as brain matter.
Did you ultimately have a conversation with Mr. Murdaugh when you were out there?
I did.
And do you see him here in the courtroom today, the person that you talked to?
I do.
And can you point him out to the jury, please?
Yes, sir. He's right there, wearing a dark blue or black jacket.
Your Honor, can the record reflect that he's identified Mr. Murdaugh?
It does.
When you ultimately approached Mr. Murdaugh, what's the first thing that you did?
The first thing I did was ensure that he did not have any weapons on him. That's standard procedure for arriving on a scene like that. Any kind of weapons that are anywhere on the scene, I want to be aware of just so I can know whether they're there or not, and if they are there, who has access to them at any point. And that's for my safety as well as other responding officers and for anyone else that's on scene.
Did Mr. Murdaugh give you any possible explanation for this when you approached him?
His immediate reaction was to start telling me about an incident that had happened with his son with a boating accident.
With the boating accident?
Yes, sir.
Had you asked him anything about that?
I did not.
You ultimately, were you wearing a body-worn camera that particular day?
I was.
You ultimately had a conversation with Mr. Murdaugh for a fairly extended period of time. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I'm going to try to set up Rumble for this afternoon.
Did you ever see any tears in your interactions?
I'm
with
not
Mr. Murdaugh?
guaranteeing
He
anything,
did
but
not
I'm going to
appear
give it a
be crying.
shot,
He was
okay?
upset, but I did not see any visible.
I've never
tears.
tried streaming with a Rumble, so it'll be an experience for us all.
Did Mr. Murdaugh tell you that he had any sort of firearm?
He did. He stated that he had left from that scene, went to the residence, grabbed a shotgun from that residence, and then brought it back because he felt like he needed to have it just in case something else were to happen.
He told you he had gone back to the residence after finding the victims to get that gun.
He did.
What, if anything, did you do once he told you that he had gotten a gun?
First, he pointed out where the gun was. It was leaning against the vehicle that he was driving at the time. I could see that it was a camouflage shotgun. I spoke with him for a few more minutes, and just based off of how nervous he was acting and anxious and upset, I decided it was in everyone's best interest to get that shotgun and secure it in my vehicle so that no one else had access to it.
So you put that shotgun in your vehicle, is that correct?
I did.
What did you ultimately do with that shotgun? Did you later turn it over to additional law enforcement?
Yes, after it was secured in my vehicle, once SLED arrived on scene to do their further investigation, it was then turned over to SLED.
Bear with me 1 second.
So far, so good. Just getting the basics out. Who is he? What, how is he related to this scene? Just basics, but this is fine.
Ask that we,
Good foundational work.
Elmo working, please.
It's necessary and it's going pretty well. I think as a general proposition, most attorneys spend too long on foundation. That's been one criticism I've had sort of trial. But then again, I personally as a judge also think that foundation is less important compared to other judges. So I guess it's a consistent philosophy where foundation for me is less important as maybe than the bar as a whole.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I mean, I understand some of it. I just don't think the degree to which it's used is required or prudent, but that's a personal philosophy. Everyone has their own little idiosyncrasies.
All right, I'm going to put what's been marked as... I'm going to put what's been marked as State's Exhibit 3 up on the screen and see if I can get it the right way. All right. You can't see. Can you see that? You probably can't.
I can.
You can? All right. And do you recognize the what's in that particular image?
I do.
All right. And tell me what that is, please.
That's the shotgun that I secured in my vehicle on the scene.
Okay. See,
You don't like Rumble? Well, I'm not saying you have to go there. It's just that people have been asking for it, and might as well try it out, And if we don't like it, we never have to do it again, right? Oh my God. Really? Okay, Rumble's not letting me verify myself right now, so that'll have to wait. Is the court feed low? People keep telling me where the court feed volume is because I can't hear the relative volume levels of things. So if the court feed is low or if I'm low or whatever, you guys have to let me know and I'll readjust it. But so yes, I'll churn up the court volume a little bit more. I'm loud. I can turn myself down as well. So afternoon won't be on YouTube. Oh no, it'll be on YouTube too. It would just be in addition to. Right now we're streaming simultaneously to Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube. So we would just add Rumble as an additional feed for the people that might want to watch over there. Although I wouldn't be able to see that chat, so I'm not sure if that's a good idea or not. Why is his son in court? Why not? I'm sure his son has some interest in the outcome of this trial.
Sergeant Green, I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 4 for identification at this time. And see if you recognize this particular item.
Yes, sir. That would be the shotgun that I secured.
All right. Your Honor, this time we would move Exhibit 4 into evidence.
Objection. Any objection?
No, sir.
Admitted.
May I have Sergeant Green show this firearm to the jury?
Yes.
Be sure not to point at anybody, please. age that firearm is?
I believe it's 12 gauge.
Thank you.
Isn't he on the witness list? There's no way he's on the witness list and sitting in that courtroom. Or maybe he's on the witness list, but they told him that he was on a witness list at some point, but they told him he's not going to be needed. I can't imagine that he's still going to be called as a witness and also sitting in the courtroom at the same time.
All right, Sergeant Green, I'm going to show you one other document before we move on to some other matters.
So they have the murder weapon, they have the shotgun. They don't have the rifle.
All right,
There were
Your
two
Honor,
murder weapons.
I believe I'd move to admit it states Exhibit 2 without objection.
And no objection, Your Honor.
He does have another kid, yes. It's the redhead kid on the redhead kid on like the fourth row on the left-hand side is his child.
Yes, sir. That would be the chain of custody for the shotgun.
All right, is there a signature on that document?
It is.
All right, and what does this chain document reflect? Can you just generally explain what this means to the jury, please?
That I originally took possession of that weapon and then turned it over to SLED investigators.
All right. May I publish this exhibit, Your Honor?
Yes.
Is that the shotgun that was the murder weapon? That's what they're saying. Is there a way to prove it?
So up here it lists that there was a
Maybe.
Benelli Super Black Eagle. Did you unload this particular shotgun?
I did not.
Okay. But you
Is it
ultimately
unloaded
turned the
now?
shotgun in its loaded state over to the agent listed here, is that
I
correct?
did. I did.
Did you alter or change the weapon in any way between the time you took it and the time you took it over to SLED?
No, I
I
didn't.
thought you couldn't
manipulate
trace
it in any way.
shotguns because of the shell. Well, you can't trace the bullets. You can't trace the pellets that come out of it, the BBs. But you might be able to trace the casing. I don't know. I mean, the casing is getting ejected out of especially if it's a semi-automatic shotgun, it's getting ejected out of there with force with an extractor with a firing
I'm gonna
pin.
show you
So
what's been
you
marked.
might be able to match it
This
based on
time
the
States
casing.
Exhibit number 1, see if you recognize this.
I don't know. We'll find out, I guess.
Yes, sir, I do.
All right, and can you tell the jury what this is on this disc right here?
That would be the body camera footage from that incident.
From your arrival at Moselle Road and through the investigation until at some point you turned it off after it no longer needed to be on, is that
That's
correct?
correct.
All right, Your Honor, at this time I'll move to admit States Exhibit number 1.
That clarification, that is this officer's body.
That's his
cam
son there in the gray jacket with the red
mounted on his
hair.
Body, is that correct?
Second row
That's
back.
correct. It's
That's his son.
mounted on me. Yeah.
Say admitted.
Your Honor, permission to publish this.
And what a
exhibit to
lovely
the jury.
loft of hair he has.
I'll need the.
Yeah, the feed was echoing. That's in the original.
Your Honor, I would point out that there are graphic images on this,
So,
everybody needs to.
we make do.
Please.
I mean, for courtroom audio, this is by far and away the best courtroom audio we've ever had. So, you know, the fact that people are complaining even about this courtroom audio, it's like, wow.
Control what is
He is charged with 2 counts of
published
murder.
in accordance with the court's order.
He's on trial for 2
Parties
counts of murder.
released
Unrelated to
this
that,
case.
currently pending is 106 counts of various financial
Get some
frauds.
graphic images and then uncovering it.
Well, I say unrelated, but the financial frauds may have been somewhat of the motive for the murders. But
Mr. Griffin's ready.
he's not on trial for them in any event right now. Thank you again for the 400 of you currently watching. I do really appreciate all of you are here as we learn from the misfortunes of others.
To the hospital.
Yeah, stay in town. I'm heading out there.
Advised a female shot in the head. The son is shot also. Not breathing. Stand by for further.
717 around Moselle.
Sergeant Green, this is your body cam video, is that correct?
That's correct.
The first 15 minutes or so of this video are you running code, running at full speed or at least reasonable speed to get to this scene as fast as you can, is that correct?
Yes, sir. My lights and siren were activated, so I can get there quickly.
Your Honor, at this time, I'm going to fast forward it until he arrives, I believe without objection from the defense.
Without objection, Your Honor.
Yeah, Jojo, it's not 106 separate trials. I believe it's 16 separate trials at the moment, because it's 16 indictments and 106 counts in those 16 indictments. So, hey, it's not 106 trials. It's only 16, so we're making progress.
Central on 818 will be stationed at Moselle on Crosswalk.
Okay, buddy.
Central Battalion 1 to here, waiting for
Past the driveway that I was supposed to have turned down. Like I said, everything's kind of dark out there. It wasn't clearly indicated, so.
Central, that's 4147 or 57?
4147. Keep your vehicle in the driveway with the flashes on. That's going to be the caller.
Sent me ideas yesterday on Twitter. Let me
Got
take a
locked
look.
Driveway, but the mailbox out front is labeled. It's not at the end of the driveway. You might be up by the house.
The correct number for 4147 Moselle?
It is.
And is that the incident location where you discovered the victims?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you for your Twitter.
I'm getting out. Let's call her now.
Copy. Share.
Right there to the left of the screen. What did you see right there?
To
Yeah,
the left
I'm
was,
definitely
Paul's
open to
body.
having
He was
people
laying
outside
face
law and
down
stuff on
ground.
this stream, so
Large pool of blood
I'll
around him,
take a look
as well as a
at
great deal of water that was immediately
having
around his body.
other people on the
That
stream.
water, was it
Lab
just around-
opportunities.
was it down the entire kennel
I could definitely do
concrete
that.
pad, or was it mostly?
I need to
So you
send
can
an
see walking
invite
down the kennel as I got
to
out. The closer I got to Paul's
Grizzly
body,
True
the
Crime
more
as
water
well.
there was.
Had it been raining enough at
is
this
she on
point in
Twitter?
time to
Hold on.
wet the entire to cause that amount of water?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Objection overruled.
Answer the question, please.
I don't recall if it had been raining a whole lot that evening, but given where the water was, it did not appear that
Yes.
rain had caused that water.
Ladies and gentlemen, there
Can I-
is
can I
an
DM her?
objection.
Yes, I can.
If
Hopefully
I
she'll see this.
sustain the objection, you are to then disregard the question and any responses.
text
If
her
I
this.
overrule the objection, then you may consider the responses, and the question is deemed appropriate. You may
right.
proceed.
Thank you.
So I've DM'd Grizzly True Crime just now to let her know that I'm streaming as well, in case she also wants to join me at some point, because that would be cool.
Share.
Central 717 scene is secure. Got a Whiskey Fox, Whiskey Mike.
What are we seeing to the right of this image?
So on the right would be Maggie's body, also laying face down on the ground. A large pool of blood around her head.
And we see an individual standing. Who is that?
The individual standing in the background would be Mr. Murdaugh.
The person you previously identified in this courtroom?
That's correct.
Both gunshot wounds to the head.
Thank you for the PayPal, Ronnie.
And just to be clear, this location that you're standing
Yep.
right now is in Colleton
Thank
County, is
you.
that
I got $15 from Veronica. Thank you for your super chat.
Okay, it's in your vehicle? Do you have any guns on you at all?
No, sir. It's leaning up against the side of my car.
You're fine, man. You're fine. Turn around for me.
I don't have any.
Okay, yes, sir. I see that. Okay. This is your wife and son? Okay.
I noticed you shined your flashlight just a few seconds ago on the black vehicle. What did you shine your flashlight on just then?
You could see the shotgun leaning up against the side of that vehicle.
Were the flashers on the vehicle right there in the image?
I believe so,
recall?
yes.
Okay.
It's bad. Check the pulses.
Yes, sir. This is the firearm you brought from inside the house?
Sir, yes, sir. I went and got, this is a long story. My son was in a boat wreck a few months back. He's been getting threats. Most of it's been benign stuff we didn't take serious.
Okay.
You know, he's been getting like punched. I know that's somebody. I know that's what it is.
Okay. When did...
Was that when you previously testified that he mentioned the boat case or the boat wreck?
That's correct. Prior to me asking him anything about it, he did mention it.
Did you get home right when you called, or did you go
Thank
to
you,
the house
True
first?
Blue,
Where's
for
the
becoming an
house?
I came to the
uncivilian. We
house
do
first.
appreciate all of our
My mom
uncivilians.
has late stages Alzheimer's, and my dad is in the hospital.
Okay.
I left. I don't know what time. I can go back on my phone and tell you the exact times. Did you check?
Did I check what?
Did you check them?
We got medical guys that are that's what they're gonna do. Okay.
What are they doing? Can they hurry?
They are. Yes, sir. That gentleman that was out here already, he's one of the battalion chiefs. Okay.
Right before that discussion, did Mr. Murdaugh offer to go on his phone and check?
He did.
Time.
He did. He wanted to verify exactly the timing of his arrival.
How did you pull up? You from back there?
I went to the house and they weren't home, which was odd. I tried to call.
Okay.
And then I knew they had been down here before I left to go to my mom's.
Okay.
And so that is loaded.
Okay.
You might want to unload it. But
Is this the only firearm with you? This is the only one, or is there any more in the truck?
I believe that's it.
You think that's the only one? Okay.
I'm 99%.
Do you normally
certain that's
have
right.
any other firearms in your vehicle?
I don't, but
Okay.
occasionally there's a pistol in there.
Okay.
So you're putting stuff on your hands. What are you doing right there?
Those are just gloves so I could put on my hand to limit the contamination of any evidence.
You put those on before you handled the firearm. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Just wait right here for me for a second, okay?
Copy.
What are you doing right now?
At this point, I'm walking back to my vehicle to secure that shotgun inside my vehicle.
We can actually see you holding it to the left of the screen. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's me holding the barrel of that shotgun.
Explain to us real quick a body-worn camera. Where is that located, and where are these images coming from?
I would have put it, I generally put it right here on my chest, dead center of my chest.
And how is it activated? How is it turned off? Can you explain that to the jury a little bit as well?
So most of these cameras are activated in the patrol vehicles that deputies on patrol have. They're activated whenever you activate your blue lights. So as soon as I turn my blue lights on, it activates my dash camera as well as my body-worn camera.
And then how do you ultimately turn it off?
It's got a button on the front of it that you can press. If it did not originally activate it, you would press that button to turn it on, to start the recording, and then whenever you're done recording, you press that same button to stop the recording.
In this particular instance, how did it get activated? Was it when you turned on your blue lights to run code to the scene?
That's correct. It was activated with my blue lights.
And I've used the term run code. Do you know what that means?
Yes.
And can you explain that to the jury, please?
Sure. Running code is just whenever you turn your lights on as well as your siren to get wherever you need to get fast.
When you're moving quickly to respond to an emergency situation.
That's correct.
653 Uncivil. Go ahead, sir. Yeah, well, I've already spoken with Captain Deal.
Right there, you laid the shotgun inside your vehicle, is that correct?
That's correct. I laid it in front of the passenger seat in the front.
Did it remain there until it was turned over to SLED?
It did.
Yeah, of course, Judy. Yeah, the defense has obviously seen all these videos as part of discovery. Any evidence that's going to be used in trial, they've seen.
To the left of the screen, again, that's where
So,
the
yeah,
ball
of
was,
course.
is that correct?
That's correct. That's Paul laying on the ground.
And is that where you saw the water that you
It is.
described earlier?
It is.
Well, I've already spoken with Captain Deal. He's got crime scene. He's contacted them. He's also going to give us the assistance of a couple of field agents. Roger that. No, they are now.
They are dead, aren't
I
they?
just turned on those.
Yes, sir. That's what it looks like.
All
What is Mr. Murdaugh doing at this particular time?
He's on the phone, pacing around, talking to someone. I'm not sure who he was talking to at that point.
Did he ask you to confirm if they were dead?
He did. He asked multiple times while I was on scene.
Did you ever see him, any tears, any physical tears?
I did not.
Did you ever see him approach the bodies?
I did not see him approach them, no.
Did you observe any visible blood on him?
There was no blood on him that I could see.
The bodies, as you saw them, was there a lot of blood around them given the injuries they had suffered?
Yes, there was a pool of blood around each of the bodies that extended out from the body.
It's kind of suggestive he didn't do it, right? In some ways.
Yeah, the police are here now. The police are here now.
Yeah, I did stream yesterday.
Okay.
You couldn't find the stream yesterday?
When was the last time you were here with them? Or
Let me see
talked to
what
them or
that's
anything
about.
like that?
See if I can figure out what that's all about.
It was earlier tonight.
I'll make sure to put it in the playlist as well, in case it's not already as
I
well.
was probably gone an hour and a half from my mom's, and I saw them about 45 minutes before that.
Okay.
I rode around with Paul for 2 hours this afternoon in the pickup truck.
That's your son, Paul?
The afternoon stream's not on the playlist. I'll edit.
Somebody going to check them?
Yes, sir. They've already checked them.
They did check them?
Yes, sir.
It's official that they're dead?
Yes, sir. That's what it looks like.
When you observed these victims, was it obvious that they had injuries incompatible with life?
Yes, any reasonable person that came upon those bodies would have come to a conclusion that they were deceased.
Well, if you just came upon your wife's dead body, I'm not sure at that point you're a reasonable person. So, I don't know, man.
Call her parents.
What's her name?
Her name's Maggie Murdaugh. Margaret Brandstetter Murdaugh.
Okay, cool.
How you doing?
What's her birthday?
Pause it right there. What did the defendant just say?
All right, so I put it in the playlist, so hopefully that'll make
Back
it
it
more
up.
discoverable. And now I have to put this morning's one in the playlist as well.
Margaret Brandstetter Murdaugh. How you doing?
The joys of being a
right there.
YouTuber,
So I'm in the
always
process of gathering
something,
information
so many
about the two
things. I should
victims from
start
Mr.
putting
Murdaugh.
together a checklist.
Somebody
of
walks
so many
by
things.
behind me, and he pauses what he's telling me to say, "Hey, how you doing?"
How you doing?
Yeah.
And who was that he said that to?
I'm not 100% certain. I believe it was a fire rescue individual.
Very cool.
What's her birthday?
9/15/68.
Okay. And what's your son's first name? You said Paul?
Paul Terry Murdaugh.
And what's his birthday?
Jason, do you have anybody
4.
coming through town that can stop and pick up that tent? I see lights off in the distance.
What are they covering them up?
I got some getting dressed now, Sheriff. I'll have somebody stop and grab it.
Tell them they don't have to do that. They don't need to. Preserve what we can.
653. Where's it at? I'm in town.
Actually, tried to be Delta 8 because he's going to be the only one that's got access.
What's
to
Paul's
where it is
birthday?
right now.
Copy.
April 14th.
Rumble's not letting me verify
Put it
my
up as wide
account,
as
so
you
I
can.
don't think we'll be able to do Rumble this afternoon.
That's fine.
We'll try
Is it
for Rumble
99?
tomorrow morning, though.
Sir?
He was born in 99.
The problems.
He was born April 14th, 1999.
Okay. What's your first name, sir?
My name is Alex Richard Alexander Murdaugh.
Let me ask you this. In your interactions with Mr. Murdaugh, was he able to understand your questions and respond appropriately to what you were asking?
Yes.
Was he catatonic in any way?
No. He was able to answer all the questions that I asked him.
Was he panicking in any way?
He seemed upset, but I wouldn't say panicky.
Did you notice any labored breathing or anything like that from Mr. Murdaugh?
Yeah, he was breathing heavily. Never once did he complain about not being able to breathe. I mean, there were fire rescue guys out there. He didn't ask for any kind of medical attention or anything like that due to not being able to breathe.
Richard Alexander Murdaugh.
familiar with the location?
No.
Sure.
Hey, Cody,
Just what I'm thinking.
come around the truck and then go to the building. Come around the truck and then.
There's a set of prints off behind the trailer there.
Yes.
I don't know if it's from
What's
ours
that?
or not. There's a set of footprints behind the trailer there too.
Who's that individual right there?
I'm not sure of his name. I just know that he works for Carleton County Fire Rescue.
Have we scheduled this for 2?
Carleton County Fire Rescue.
That's why we kind of stepped out there and just so we step over and
About 3, 3. Just 8's going to be the last one in and grabbing the 10.
In the background in the center of the screen, it looks like somebody's doing something with some yellow tape. Can you explain what that is to the jury, please?
That's correct. That's Deputy Pruitt, one of the deputies that I supervise. I instructed him to put up crime scene tape to include that vehicle. We put up crime scene tape to try to keep people out of the immediate crime scene area, preserve any possible evidence that's there.
At this point in time, had you noticed any evidence of firearms, such as casings or spent shells or anything like that?
Yeah, as I was walking through, you can't necessarily see it on my body camera, but as I was walking through, I could see shell casings, particularly around Maggie's body.
All right. And a shell casing, would they be for like a rifle round or a pistol round?
They
or-
appear to be rifle rounds.
And could you tell just from walking by what type of ammunition at that point in time?
I couldn't tell what type. I could tell that they appeared to be rifle, and that's about it.
And again, you weren't stopping to collect those. You were managing the scene as you described before.
That's
so-
correct.
Just go over to that corner of the building.
I'm almost to you. Let me see what we have first and whether or not we're going to handle that part or not.
What are you shining your light on right there?
So there in the background behind where Mr. Murdaugh is standing, you can see several sets of tire tracks. The grass was really wet that night, so those tracks appeared to be really fresh. So it caught my eye.
All right. And why did it catch your eye?
It just seemed odd that it appeared to be that many sets of tire tracks since he said.
All right, I've got the
pulled up,
stream
went
for
to
this
the house and
afternoon
came
now
back. It just
scheduled.
appeared that there were more than just that.
At least for tentative
There were more
placeholder.
tracks than just that.
That's correct.
I see quite a few tire tracks in here. Were any of these you going in and out?
No, I came in here and I left one time and I came back.
Okay.
The rest of them, maybe
Okay.
from earlier, but
Okay.
only 2 are mine.
Did you go out this way at all?
No.
Village, right?
I am YouTubing successfully.
Hey, stay here. Got a whole bunch of stuff right there. I don't want to disturb.
that's why I'm trying to get the door so we can kind of get around that.
You don't know how to copy the tweet? When you click the
best way
tweet,
is
there's a
probably gonna be
little,
back through those
below the
rocks
tweet,
so
there's a
you
little
can't
arrows that feed into each other icon. You just click that. That's the retweet button.
Each name.
Yes. Okay, I'll get that in a little bit. Yeah, that's fine.
This, of course, presumes that you have Twitter. If not, then you can reshare this YouTube link on your social media of choice. Will be fine. But Twitter is probably the best way to get attention to the channel, I think. Or at least that's my banking.
Whose vehicle are you approaching right now?
That was the vehicle that Mr. Murdaugh said that he had approached that scene in.
Was that a black Suburban, to your recollection?
It is.
Are the police still investigating the possible involvement of Stephen Smith's death too? Yeah, as far as I'm aware, they are. So that's the person that was found on the road near Murdaugh's home at some other time, along with the housekeeper that he's also possibly suspected for killing. So he's a suspect in 2 other murders, in addition to the 106 financial fraud
Right there,
counts.
that would be Maggie's body right in front of that
So-
shed. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's covered up by a sheet at this point.
A long dirt driveway right next to the mailbox says 4147, and you'll see all our lights down here. This shed thing.
You ain't come through Brick Hollow.
Negative.
Nothing. duty here out of Mobile.
Who's that standing way off in the distance there?
That would be Mr. Murdaugh.
Where did he spend the majority of his time while you were there after your initial interaction with him?
From this point on, his general time was spent in that area where he's currently standing.
Pretty far away from the scene?
That's correct.
This afternoon stream tweeted with the thumbnail. Yes. Yes.
Delta 8, 653. Telephone City.
What was occurring right there? With the
So what
other
was
deputy?
occurring right there?
Yeah.
So both of those deputies, or Deputy Pruitt would be on the left and Deputy McDowell would be on the right. Deputy McDowell was taking small pieces of crime scene tape and just setting them by shell casings, I believe. As road patrol officers, we don't generally have those little placards that you'll a lot of times see in crime scene photos. But to prevent somebody from accidentally stepping on them due to it being so dark out there, we tend to take something small like a piece of paper, a piece of crime scene tape, set it next to it just to indicate it a little bit better.
Again, part of the job of a first responder to sort of protect the scene until the crime scene investigators get there.
That's correct.
Both these individuals, were you supervising them that night?
I was, yes.
Yeah.
Looking at this perspective right here, to the left of the screen is whose body?
To the left right there in the forefront would be Maggie, and
Yeah,
in the
Rumble,
further back, you
Rumble
can also
will
see where Paul was
automatically
laying.
upload the streams when they're done. Like all my
All next
content is
to,
mirrored on
the
Rumble,
kennel
so
area?
you can't watch
Yes.
it live on Rumble, but you can rewatch it on Rumble, so I guess there's that.
I think his brother. He said he was calling somebody. Said he was calling somebody.
I mean, I don't know what to really think about this so far, to be honest. I don't really think much of it, to be honest, one way or another. It doesn't really do that much for me.
Y'all familiar with this family?
Yes. I wasn't until he told me names. Last
Fill you
name
in later.
Murdaugh.
Yeah.
Did you know this family?
It
prior to
is
this?
some evidence. I mean, it's obviously relevant. It
I don't.
is relevant to the issue at hand. I'm just not sure how much it moves the needle one way or another.
What's that?
Did I tell you?
You said for Evo to do?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Hey.
Who is Evo?
Evo would be Deputy McDowell's K9.
Oh, I promised to
What's
send
that?
I also promised to send the link to Rob this morning, which I completely forgot to do
Huh?
in my many things. I am a bad friend,
Okay.
so
Who is
I
that
need to send the
approaching
link to
right now?
Rob because I
That would be my
really need to
immediate
see
supervisor at
what
the
he's
time,
doing
Lieutenant
this
Lonnie
morning.
Nettles.
Hold on. That's my bad. I'm a bad friend.
The gentleman in the white shirt is the husband of her, the father of him. That is Paul Murdaugh.
I'm sorry, Rob.
Paul Murdaugh.
Yeah.
Guy in a boating accident from a while back, if you remember.
Yeah.
Just then, were you describing the boat wreck?
Yes, it had been in local news previously, so
And it was your understanding that Paul was involved in that?
in some way I had no idea about the actual details of the case to know what his involvement was, honestly.
Most likely. He did have a firearm whenever I pulled up. It's a shotgun. It's been secured in my vehicle.
It's 300 blackout.
When you get a chance, can you give dispatch a phone call?
You will have to give me just a few minutes, but yes, I will.
That dispatch call, was that related to the case in any way?
I don't believe it was. I don't remember what that phone call ended up being about. As a supervisor, if a lot of us are tied up at one time, they will tend to give me a phone call to let me know that a certain call is pending or something else is going on. Just to help keep the radio traffic free, they'll call me on my cell phone instead.
Did your entire squad respond to this this particular call, or did somebody?
There was one deputy that remained in service.
Okay. Did not respond here, but remained on the road.
Correct.
Yeah.
653 is good.
Who can start a log? Who's the most expendable that can start a log? Let's put it that way.
This is. Can you start a crime scene log, please?
A log started. Sled's on the way. Let's push. Can we run the tape
2007, ready to be
there to there?
Yes.
From that last pole right
Start
there
a log.
to that last
Get a
pole?
piece of paper. Start writing names and times. You don't have any kind of paper?
Who's that individual right there in the center of the screen?
That
To the
would be
right.
Detective to the right.
Yes.
That would be Deputy Pruitt.
What did you just ask him to do?
Start a crime scene log.
And tell the jury what that is.
Sure. So a crime scene log is established as soon as additional people start to arrive on scene. We document exactly who comes into the actual crime scene, as well as the exact time that they come into the
At
crime
this
scene.
point, I'm going to have to just create a thing for SLED because people ask.
Here, borrow that.
We can push it from that pole to that pole.
Yep.
I'll create a thing for it so that people can get information on it.
I do see some. That look old or fresh? Old, yes.
What are we doing right here with the tape?
So I'm securing it to the corner of that part of the shed to run it along to the shed on the opposite side of that area. We just expanded the crime scene out a little bit further.
To protect a larger area?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
You don't need to speak more directly into the mic, or can you increase the volume, Madam Clerk, of that mic? Just a little.
This one that's working?
I'm referring to the witness.
Oh, sorry.
Increase his volume, or
Okay.
all right, thank you, Person.
Yes, sir. I usually don't have a problem being too quiet, but speak up for us if you would, please. All right, so you're securing the crime scene tape. Let's proceed.
Great.
I'll just hold the light for you. Go away to that side. Marnie, let's just keep our fingers crossed. Yeah, I think we got it.
Top three all responded
We're in it,
to
but
the
otherwise,
Moselle Road,
that's good.
stop at the road. No one else come down the dirt road. Stop at the road.
Just read that part. Cool. All right, great. Now, every time anyone asks what is SLED, you can just type !SLED and the bot will tell them. So we don't have to keep saying it every time.
That's 027, probably doing that 66 on 95. Coming.
What's the other way in here?
From back that way, I guess. Where the house is, I guess.
Okay, that must be.
You referring to the Whiskey Mike, left off with a key? Affirmative.
We've heard on this video the term Whiskey Mike. Can you tell me what that term refers to?
Yeah, when we say Whiskey Mike, we're referring to a white male. A Whiskey Fox or a Whiskey Foxtrot would be a white female.
And in the context of this particular scene, who's the Whiskey Mike and who's the Whiskey Fox or Whiskey Foxtrot?
As I was approaching, you could hear me say to dispatch to my radio that there was a Whiskey Mike, the Whiskey Mike referring to Paul, Whiskey Fox referring to Maggie.
Do we have anything else? Negative. Got it.
To the very right of the screen, well, strike that. I'll wait.
Correct.
Yeah, the redhead is his son, yes.
I have a notepad, it's just I'm
Yes.
using the back side of all the paper, so all the front side of the paper has names and information on it.
Well, you can borrow mine for a minute. It's perfectly fine, Cody.
Take a minute. I just didn't want you to be like, we're doing the officer, don't fuck the paper now. I have paper for calls.
Do you not have any crime scene log sheets? Hey, at 717, I was asked to give you guys a call.
Have it in your list.
Hi. Okay. Okay. I will inquire and I'll get back to you.
I don't know who the lady in black is.
Okay.
Want to close it in it?
Yeah.
Actually, I'm gonna grab.
Murdaugh's sister? Okay, that
You
makes
recognize
sense.
those individuals?
I do.
Can you tell us who they are?
On the far left would be Detective Tyndall. In the forefront toward the center would be Captain Chapman. And on the other side of him, in the lighter colored shirt with the black vest, was Barry McCroy, worked for Fire Rescue.
Okay. Did the sheriff respond to this particular incident, to your recollection?
Yes, he did.
But as far as who was the senior officer actually working the scene, at this point in time until Sled arrives, who was it at this point?
That would be Captain Chapman.
Captain Chapman?
That's correct.
Actually, I'm gonna grab a couple. I got some right here, Jason. Hey, you want us to close that in? Sir? Was that? You want us to close it in? Yeah.
There's a guy, I don't know if you want to let the other guy know, whoever Eric is, or Mr. Caller. There's a guy over here that's wanting to talk to him. But that's only what he's
Don't even know who Eric is. I know Alex over there.
Alex.
Okay.
My bad.
There's a guy over here that wants to talk to him.
Yeah, but I didn't know if you wanted me to tell him that or if you wanted me to just chill for a minute. Or if you wanted me to escort him over.
He does not need to walk over here.
No, I mean a long way.
Jillian, it isn't swampy, it's southern.
He can't.
I understand this because I grew up in this environment.
Let me ask you this. Before you had referred to...
It's a southern,
brother
genteel
arriving, is that correct?
Yes.
style.
Was that a brother? Was he allowed to talk to Alec and go over to Alec?
We're in the south, baby.
I believe he did. I don't recall. I never actually interacted with him at all.
And then this discussion right here with Deputy Pruitt, what was going on right there?
So there was someone that had arrived on scene and wanted to go and speak with Mr. Murdaugh. I told him to just wait a minute on allowing him over there so we could determine the best way to allow them to talk. simply because the crime scene was so large and we did not want to contaminate anything that didn't need to be.
Okay. To your knowledge, was that individual, whoever it was, allowed to interact with Mr. Murdaugh?
I believe so. He was eventually, yes.
People that arrived were allowed to go see Mr. Murdaugh, is that correct?
That's correct.
He was not in custody at any time, is that correct?
No.
Calling it swampy. You must be from that north I keep hearing about.
Caller and the caller's brother's name in here.
I already wrote it in there.
Alright. I don't know where you were at. I just found the first empty page I can find.
Female victim, male caller.
And then the other guy, though, I mean, he hasn't came inside the tape yet.
Then don't have to worry about him. Just make sure you get the here.
So me and you and all of us got here.
Oh my God.
Is that what you're about to say?
Yes.
What are you doing on the computer right here? Do you recall?
Yeah, so on those computers they're mounted in our patrol vehicles. We can see details of the call for service or other calls for service. In this case, I was looking at the information for the incident on Moselle to determine what units had been dispatched, what units arrived, and when they arrived, due to Deputy Pruitt trying to establish the crime scene log.
And you use the term call for service, which is a police term, but that essentially means responding to any emergency or
any type of call. Any citizen that would call our dispatch center to request law enforcement assistance or fire rescue assistance, it's called, we just refer to it as a call for service.
I came on scene at 22:26.
22:26?
Yes.
Yep.
Now, you say you came on scene at 22:26.
That's correct.
For those of us who don't know military time, can you tell us what that is?
That would be 10:26 p.m.
And that's June 7th, 2021?
That's correct.
And whoever U21 is with fire rescue, just write U21, fire rescue U21.
Yep.
And then
That was the same time as you?
he came on scene. Yeah, same time as me. It's fine. Medic 18 at 22:27.
Had it started to rain more at this point?
Yeah, it had started raining at this point, yes.
$758 on scene 22:30.
Yep.
Same time as you.
Yep.
653 on scene at 22:39.
22:39?
Yep.
Those numbers that you're referring to, what do those represent?
So the numbers would be the badge numbers of individuals arriving on scene.
You're just recording when various people arrived in the computer?
They're recorded in the computer, so when we arrive on scene, we let dispatch know our number and that we're on scene. They log it into the computer, and then we can then put it on our crime scene log.
That's all I have as far as times on this goes.
There's 787 Central. Alright. Copy. When you're clear, I have a call on Majestic of a suspicious vehicle. Copy. Where's that located? 223 Majestic Oak Way in Cottage 10-4. There's a Cottage unit that can assist. That'd be great.
Pretty sure Majestic Oaks is their jurisdiction anyway.
Central Park will follow up with the that's in our jurisdiction anyway. I'll take care of that.
Copy.
Twenty-three Majestic Oak.
I'm trying to get it.
That individual walking off to the left of the screen, who was that?
The one walking away from the screen or that just approached?
Walking away.
That was Deputy McDowell.
All right, and then the center of the screen, who was that?
The one that just walked up and is in center screen now would be Captain Krause.
All right, and then next to him, facing the body camera?
That would be Captain Chapman.
All right, and then to the far right?
Detective Tyndall.
The green trailblazer. Correction. It's unknown what type of vehicle she had.
Were there dogs in those kennels to your recollection?
There were a couple of dogs. I don't remember the exact number, but I do remember seeing some.
And the green trailblazer in her yard that belongs to her. She says she can only see the tail lights of the vehicle. She is also threatening to use them to jump off the street. It happened about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, well, I'm in there. You can't put it put the bill down possibly.
Copy.
Yes, sir. We're going to discuss it later and find out.
Okay, just I'll make sure I didn't miss something.
Nope.
That discussion right there, did that have anything to do with the crime scene or anything like that?
No, it was not related at all.
What did you just put on your hands then?
Those would be latex gloves.
And the gloves you put on that you described earlier to the jury, what were those gloves?
Those are more tactical gloves. They're not necessarily ideal for handling any kind of evidence, but due to me already being out there next to the shotgun, I did not have any latex gloves on my person, so I used what was available.
And why are you putting on latex gloves right now?
They were wanting to look under the sheet where Paul was, so just to prevent any kind of contamination of any possible evidence at all, we would just always put gloves on.
Well, the dad's over there. Actually, hold on. Some people just won't do it.
Fire rescue might have some more sheets we can steal.
That's right. It shouldn't be about 550 law enforcement or.
There is law enforcement.
I don't think you're gonna play the damn 300 blackout under there.
Not unless it's the shortest 300 blackouts ever been made.
I don't think he put that phone back.
What is that discussion about right there?
So the whole purpose for even trying to look up under him was to determine if there was an additional firearm on scene already, possibly under Paul. There was 300 blackout casings found near Maggie. They were trying to determine if there was possibly a 300 blackout rifle under Paul.
And why were y'all concerned that there may be one under Paul?
We just trying to rule it out as a possibility.
And what was that possibility then?
That he could have shot Maggie,
And then did what?
shot himself.
So you're looking to see if there's a gun underneath if he had shot himself and then fallen on top of it?
That's correct.
I haven't asked the dad about the phone, but dad did say he came over and checked their pulses.
Did you see a phone near Paul when you arrived on the scene?
Yes, there was a phone laying on top of him near his back pockets of his shorts.
Back it up just a little bit. Is that it right down there at the bottom?
That's it.
Unless it's the shortest 300 blackout 1780.
I don't think you put that phone back. I haven't asked the dad about the phone, but dad did say he came over and checked their pulses. Beyond that, I don't know what else he may have done.
He had a shotgun.
He did have a shotgun with him, and I have secured that in my vehicle.
Yeah, but it's an upward shot. Here's the one over the ceiling. Yeah, but that's because he took his head off.
Yeah. Red hair definitely turns a lighter shade when we age. My hair used to be more his color, and now, well, you see what it's become. So, my hair has definitely changed color over the years, but yeah. About what it once was when I was a young man.
Yep. So I've got multiple gunshots out of that window too.
Do we see a shell?
At least 3.
Shells.
Got it.
I'm getting old.
Right to the left of the screen, there appears to be, what does that appear to be to the very left of the screen?
There was some dog crates over there. On top of one of the dog crates is actually a dead chicken.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
A dead chicken
Okay.
Okay.
on the far left-hand side of the screen.
Did you, Your Honor, with your permission, could you step down to the screen?
Does this chicken have a name?
To the jury?
I once met a rooster named Slash in Charleston. So,
It's difficult to see, but right here on top of that small dog crate.
that's actually true. I really
Would
did.
it
I
be
really
a dead
once met a
chicken?
rooster named Slash in Charleston. So.
I couldn't see it.
Okay.
Do it
Moving
again.
on.
This area right here. Right. Thank you.
Yes.
You need in and out times or just times arrive? Like if they exit multiple times and come back in?
You don't need to keep doing all that.
Okay. I wanted to make sure before.
Yeah.
Is that your light's on right there?
That's correct. That's when I was really noticing the chicken.
The chicken winds up being a major evidentiary picture of this trial. I'll be amazed balls, but not surprised. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm asking you to convict Alex Murdaugh. This all comes down to the chicken. Ugh. Next thing they're going to tell me is that the chicken has been disemboweled and it's not spread
you know,
around
that
in
was
some sort of
5
voodoo-like ritual.
holes in the window
That's the
that
only
that
way
said
this can
were
get any more
round
stubborn
Xing out the
at
back
this
that way.
point.
Which is going to be because of the white number there. And he was carrying a shotgun when we got
It
here.
is currently in my vehicle.
Yeah. His wife. Thank you.
Chicken did it. The
Stand
chicken.
for a moment.
The chicken may have done it. I don't know. Well, I'll just simply say so far that I'm liking this witness testimony in terms of his professionalism, credibility. I find him credible. I find him professional. I find him easy to understand. I'm following along very well. So I like him as a witness. In terms of his evidentiary value, it's not really doing that much for me personally. In terms of like how Alex Murdaugh was or was not acting during the time, because, you know, well, we have been informed as a society that we shouldn't judge the way that victims act. Remember, like we shouldn't say, oh, you know, that this victim isn't acting the way a victim would act, therefore she's not the victim, right? So I'm cognizant of that fact. And I'm like, well, okay, well, if we're going to take that and apply it, let's apply it, right? So it's
May
like, okay,
proceed.
you acting the way a victim would act? I don't know. How does a victim act, right? So
That state will publish at this time, Your Honor.
I mean, you know, it's
Let me ask you a few other questions,
it's
if I
a
could.
piece of evidence. It's not doing that much for me, personally.
Deputy, Sergeant Green. I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit number 5 to your testimony and see if you recognize this image.
Yes, sir. That would be an image from my body camera when I was looking at the tire tracks in the grass.
Have the put back to the Elmo, please. Your Honor, this time I would move to admit State's Exhibit 5, I believe, without objection.
Any objection to State's Exhibit number 5? Submitted without objection. Yes. Publish any exhibit that has been admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor.
This is quite literally the good old boy network on trial.
All right, it doesn't show up on the screen that great, but who is that person in the image right there?
That would be Mr. Murdaugh.
I don't know.
And then just kind of in this area, it's more
It
clear
makes
on the
me feel
video,
like
but that would be the tire
Yeah.
tracks you described earlier?
Yes, where I'm shining my flashlight at that point is where the tire tracks were.
We cut the video off after playing sort of the relevant parts, but what did you do for the remainder of this scene as the evening continued?
So the remaining part of my role would have just been making sure the crime scene stayed secure, people stayed out of where they weren't supposed to be. Investigators were handling the remainder of the investigation.
Did eventually anyone from the SLED, the State Law Enforcement Division, show up?
They did. I
This
don't
is
believe that would have
for
been captured on
sure
my
a
body
John
camera, but
Grisham
they
book.
did, yes.
I'm delighted.
At some point, did you
But I am
like to turn
here
your body
for it.
camera off?
I am here for
I did.
it.
I cleared it with my supervisor, Captain
I lived
Krause,
in South
to ensure
Carolina
that I would
20
not be
years,
needed for
man.
any additional investigative
This is the
purposes,
state
talking
where
to
I
Mr.
spent half my
Murdaugh, or
life.
handling any additional
I
evidence.
am
And
digging
once
it.
that was
I am
okayed, I turned it
loving
off.
And so that was consistent with standard police procedures and practices and when to turn the body camera off?
That's correct.
You just didn't decide to do it willy-nilly or anything?
That's correct.
At what point, just roughly, do you remember, did you clear the scene or leave the scene?
I don't think I left the scene until several hours later.
Were you still there when SLED crime scene arrived?
Yes.
Did you remain the entire time they were there, or did you leave at some point?
I would have left prior to the end of my shift. I couldn't tell you the exact time that it was, but they were multiple units, including SLED and Carleton County investigators, still on scene when I left.
That's all the questions I have for this witness, Your Honor.
Cool.
Cross-examination.
It's going to take me a minute to set up some of the audio visual stuff.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a break at this time. Please go to the jury room. Please do not discuss the case.
Okay, guys, we're back with Seal, Clock, Chandelier. In our respective glories, the trifecta, the team is back. The team is back. I am loving this. I am loving this in every possible way. I grew up in South Carolina. I was there for 20 years of my life. I've lived in all parts of the states. I've lived in the low country. I've lived in Columbia. I lived in in the mountains near Greenville. I know this state. Oh no, we've lost Clock. Oh no. Why? Why? I think Chandelier is trying to crush on Seal, and I think Chandelier is cutting the feed of Clock because it is envious of the relationship between Clock and Seal. Chandelier thinks both Clock and Seal are round. They both have hash marks around their circumference, and Chandelier is feeling a little bit like they have to make up for it because they don't have those aspects. If Chandelier just learned how to be itself, though, rather than wanting to be more like Clock, then I think that Chandelier might do better. But Chandelier is trying to pretend to be Clock. It's like, look, I'm round and I've got things around my circumference, but they're not hash marks, though. They're not hash marks. But it's like it's try hard. It's try hard trying to flirt with Seal. And I think Seal is not here for it. I think Seal and Clock are the ones that are meant to be. And Chandelier here is trying to be an interposer, dangling down. I mean, how sus is that, right? It can't just be on the wall like Seal and Clock. No, it has to dangle down, literally lower itself into frame so that it can try to hit on Seal. I don't really. Yeah, this is a tragedy in a lot of ways for Chandelier. I'm not sure what Chandelier sees in Seal, but Seal's not here for it. I don't know if Seal's going to get a restraining order, but Chandelier is interposing themselves between Seal and Clock. It is a thing. Yeah. Chandelier, you're beautiful in your own right. Your golden sheen and your lights are very pretty. You are beautiful in your own right. And I understand the appeal of Seal. But I don't know that it was meant to be. You don't have any writing on you. Seal and Clock have writing on them. They're both round. They both have hash marks on their circumference. They both communicate a message. Seal has a more static message. Clock's message is a little bit more variable, but sometimes it is the differences that create the attraction. You're on Team Chandelier, Rise of the Underdog in this narrative. They have curve. You light up my life. Sconce is just kind of here in the background, just chilling and observing the whole thing. Sconce is a witness to the entire love triangle that is Seal, chandelier, and clock. Chandelier is hot. Look at those curves. I don't know, maybe it's just try hard. It's try hard. I mean, if we want to talk about curves, I mean, I don't know that you can do any better than seal and clock. They've got the most curves that is possible to have. So if you're into that curvy lifestyle, I'm not sure chandelier is where it's at. It's all about seal and clock. Chandelier gives light to those who can't see. I know chandelier is good in its own right, and it could have a great relationship. It's just not seal. It's not what seal wants. It's just not what seal wants. I would just like to note that you don't get this intelligent. I would just like to note that you do not get this wonderful love triad commentary on other law channels. Other law channels are great and all. But I'm just going to take a punt and assume that Emily D. Baker, for example, is not talking about the love relationship between seal, chandelier, and clock. Only on Uncivil Law. Only on Uncivil Law can you get this insightful analysis of the love affair that is, yeah. And by interposing itself between seal and clock, chandelier actually undermines itself, because with chandelier's light, it illuminates seal and clock, so they are better able to see each other. So chandelier oh no, we've lost seal. No, chandelier, what have you done? No, chandelier, what have you done? Oh no, seal's dead. Seal's dead. There's been a murder in the courtroom. Fade to black. Oh my God. Okay. All right. Seal's not dead. Okay. All right. And we're back to clock. Oh no. Competing chandelier. Oh no, there's a rival for chandelier. Oh my God. Okay, that's a lot of, all right. Okay, now we're on to molding. And window corner. I'm not sure how they enter this relationship, if at all. And we've just faded completely to black again. No, I don't know how. I don't know exactly what's going on here. Crown molding needs a little bit of attention. Crown molding, it has not been taking care of themselves as well as they could. Let themselves go a little bit. Now we're on to other lights in the ceiling. But back to chandelier. Yeah. Chandelier has back. But we did see other chandeliers in the courtroom. Oh no. Are we losing clock? Stay with us, clock. Stay with us. You don't need to retreat in shame. People love you. This is a throuple. But Now we just see bottom half of clock. Oh. Now there's another chandelier. And now we're on to wall corner. This is and the lighting is changing with wall corner. Oh no, wall corner has faded to black. No, it's back. We also note that wall corner, much like molding, has not been taking real great care of itself. Here's a picture. Okay, yeah. No, this molding is in a little bit better shape than the other one. We can see it's one. No, it faded to black again. No, we're back. We can see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts that form the unity of the left-hand side of door frame, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that form the top unity of door frame. Door frame is 6 by 5. And we're back to clock. This is the best. Hold on. There we go. There we go. I don't know that they're a throuple. That's better. Party girls don't get hurt. Can't feel anything. When will I learn? I push it down. I push it down. I'm the one for a good time call. Phone's blowing up, ringing my doorbell. I feel the love. Feel the love. I truly feel the love of all this. For sure. Just a friendly reminder to the 400 of you who are here, if you've not done so already, would you kindly hit that like button? And also, perhaps even more importantly, if you would go to the pinned comment on YouTube, if you have the Twitters, and retweet this, that would be very, very helpful indeed. Thank you, Adam Trapp, for the 20 gift memberships. I really do appreciate it. You are awesome. Seal's back. Seal is back. Moving briefly from Love Triangle Watch, I will go back to my comments about the witness a little bit more. So one of the things we hear from society, for example, when it comes to domestic violence victims or SA victims, is that there is no perfect victim and there is no right way to act as a victim, and that it is it is not good to say, well, this victim isn't acting a particular way, therefore they're not a victim, right? There is that been thing. Well, if that's true for DA and SA victims, then it would have to be universally true, right? Or at least that's how I would perceive it, because I like Immanuel Kant and I deal with them categorical imperatives, right? So Immanuel Kant talks about things that are true are only true if they can be maximized without contradiction. So if you take a proposition like SA and DV victims should not be judged based on the way they act, and there is no right way for an SA DV victim to act, and there is, if that's true from an Immanuel Kant perspective, for that to be true, it must be true universally, right? So it must also be true of a person who is seeing their wife shot and their son shot and stuff like that. So that's sort of the thing that's going through my mind. It's like, well, if we are to, say that there's no such thing as a perfect victim, then whatever problems Alex Murdaugh has and sort of the way he might be acting, not necessarily positive anyway. So that's what I'm thinking. So it's not doing a lot for me right now, but
you may bring the jury.
So far, it's just not doing that much for me. I mean, I don't know. You don't get the connection? You don't get the connection between the concepts? A DV victim is a victim of crime. An SA victim is a victim of crime. A person who comes upon their wife's dead body is a victim of crime. That's the connection. They're all victims of crime. They've all had something horrible happen to them. They're all victims. That's the connection. South Carolina uses more mustard than vinegar. I hate South Carolina barbecue. Well, that's why I like South Carolina barbecue. So yeah, North Carolina is more vinegar based. South Carolina is more mustard based, and I am a South Carolina fan.
You may proceed.
Please, Your Honor.
Are we back with the state?
Deputy Green, for my own edification, I'm curious. I called over several weeks, left you voicemails for you to call me back and talk. Have I not?
I haven't received any voicemails.
You don't check your voicemail?
Did you call my cell phone?
No, I called your office.
Okay.
I don't have your cell phone.
Okay. It's possible they sent you to the wrong one. I don't know.
But you've spent an extensive amount of time talking to Mr. Waters about your testimony, have you not?
I've spoken with him a few times, yes.
How many times?
3 or 4, maybe at least.
And has he reviewed with you the points he was trying to make?
We've discussed the body camera footage extensively.
Right. Let me go to a specific piece of video. I apologize for not the AV situation required me to have my AV guy come up and work from there. Did you get that list? So, as he's preparing this, you indicated you were asked by Mr. Waters, said there was water on the ground, right? It hadn't been raining, and you saw water, right?
That's correct.
And as I understand it, and we're going to look at the video in just a minute, that water was primarily at least what we see in your video, on the concrete area around the dog pens, correct?
That's what it appeared, yes.
Okay. And let's go to that first.
Carolina treat barbecue sauce. That does sound familiar. Send me the link. Nate wants a link. You give Nate a link. Maybe Nate can comment on the thruple.
Sorry, Your Honor, the technology is difficult. Glad to help. Glad to help. Got it.
Share.
Go ahead a little bit further. Okay, back it up just a little bit, could you? Just back it up a little. Okay, yeah, now start right there. I think I can stop it just a second.
Come on now. Share.
Okay, stop it. Now, you're walking down in front of the dog pens. Is this the water you're referring to?
Yes.
And you have dogs?
I have one dog.
You don't keep them in a pen?
No, he stays in the house.
Okay. But if you had hunting dogs and you had this line of, how many pens do you think there were?
I honestly couldn't tell you. I mean, there's a lot.
8, 9, 10?
Sure.
And are you familiar with the concept of washing a pen out after a dog defecates in the pen?
I've never personally done it, but I'm sure that's what you would do to clean out a pen.
Okay. And in the pen, I mean, there's water inside the pens and outside the pens, correct?
That's what it looks like.
Okay. Go ahead.
You have a friend that teaches at the University of South Carolina Law School? Well, tell your friend that I'd like a job. And if they're hiring, I'm available. And I promise to bring just the most wonderful snark possible. As I am prepared to join the faculty at the University of South Carolina Law School. I'm serious, by the way. If you or anyone you know is a professor of a law school or something, I would appreciate you contacting your friend and say, hey, this guy on civil might be a good addition to your law school.
Stop for counsel to ask this question for the.
That's how it's done, right? That's how people get jobs. Is from personal referrals. I will absolutely take the
Playing the
personal
video,
referral.
I'm sorry, Aaron.
or making a statement while playing the video.
I'm sorry. The technology again is beyond.
Come to Nashville, I'll get you a job. Get me a job, I'll come to Nashville.
Okay, so again, this shows the same area, shows water on the concrete outside these dog pens, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Go to the next one, please.
I'd be happy to come interview at a law school in Nashville. That'd be fine. I'd be happy to move, that's fine. What about my YouTube career? Hey, why not both? Be a professor with the LawTube channel, it'd be great.
So again, this shows, actually there's a light shining and you see a couple dogs. So those pens are occupied by dogs. There's water outside the pen and inside the pen as if somebody had attempted to wash something out of the pens, correct?
There is water both inside and outside of the pen, yes.
You got one more?
I just looked at the Texas bar. This is true. And because it's a UBE state, I can apply for licensure in Texas and South Carolina very easily. So I can, if that's an issue, it's not a problem right now because I just looked at South Carolina. I think South Carolina's UBE. Hold on, before I take that turn.
Again, I apologize, Your Honor, but the technology is more complicated than. Yeah. So
Yeah.
let's
South Carolina's
proceed.
got us here for the
Let's see if
UBE.
I can clarify a couple matters.
So for the next
Let's talk about this shotgun.
3 years, I can apply for South Carolina, and for the next
This is the shotgun that Mr. Murdaugh
3 years I can apply for
And leaning
Tennessee.
up a car against a car
So
with
I
a
can get
shotgun, is that
licensure in
correct?
Tennessee
was leaning up against that
and
vehicle,
South
yes.
Carolina very easily.
And according to what you testified to just a moment ago, these are the shells, the chain of custody on the shotgun and the shell, they went together.
Whenever I released the shotgun
Vanderbilt
to
was
the SLED
firing?
agent who took possession of it, I was unaware of any shells that may have been inside of it at the time that it was handed over. That was what was discovered
Foreign
inside the
Service?
gun, is my
Foreign
understanding.
Service exam might be fun. Might do that.
Chain of evidence document presented.
Yeah, you don't have to be licensed to be a law professor. This is also very true.
Okay, would you publish this to the jury, please?
But if it were an issue, I'm just saying, it's
You would like me to read it?
relatively easy for me to apply in these jurisdictions.
The Camo Benelli Super Black Eagle 3 12-gauge shotgun, serial number U573210E17, one unfired shot shell 12-gauge Federal, one unfired shot shell Winchester 16-gauge.
Okay, so there's a 12-gauge shell and a 16-gauge shell.
Yes.
12-gauge shotgun.
Yes.
This may be way beyond your experience, but can you fire a 16-gauge shotgun shell from a 12-gauge shotgun?
Oh, no.
I wouldn't recommend trying it.
You recommend what?
I would not recommend trying it. I don't know that it would actually work or not.
Could it result in damage to the person trying to fire the shotgun?
More than likely.
Jack, he's already said he doesn't have the answer to that.
Objections overruled.
So you would not, you can actually harm yourself. It could blow up if you pulled the trigger on a 16-gauge and a 12-gauge shotgun.
I've never tried it nor seen it tried, so I don't
And the
know.
reason you don't do that is
This
because
is
that
this
harms
this
the
can
person.
happen a little bit more
Right.
frequently
It's
with
possible.
the 20 gauge
So
and a 12
this
gauge
shotgun, according to
Does a
the
20
chain of evidence
gauge
you just read,
shotgun,
has a 16 gauge and a 12 gauge.
shell or 20
Correct.
gauge shotgun. What would be the proper term?
And it was leaning up against the car.
It was the shotgun. Was.
Cartridge.
Now I'm sort of
A
interested
20
as
gauge
to
shotgun cartridge is
Sure.
almost exactly the size
I'm
of
sort of
the bore
interested as to why
of a 12 gauge. So
well, let me-
it works as basically a perfect plug for a
There was
12 gauge.
theory that Paul had shot
So
his mother and then shot
you
himself.
occasionally see that
Is that
happen.
correct? That's,
I've never seen it happen
Yes.
personally. I've seen the
She had been
result.
shot multiple times,
And the shotgun banana peels
and
Does
he
the
had been
20
shot with a
gauge
shotgun.
20 gauge
At least one of
load
the shots,
acts as a perfect plug for a 12 gauge shotgun.
we all believe was
So-
upward. That's why his brains were all over the ceiling
That part I don't know. I wasn't involved in that part of it.
at the scene.
I did not discuss anything being shot upward. I don't recall saying that.
Did you hear discussions to that of your fellow
A
officers?
shell.
Of a
Thank
shot
you.
being fired upward?
Shotgun
That's what it
shell,
looked like they
thank
were
you.
saying, yes.
Okay. And further,
Was up lit
I
with
think
Nick
y'all,
prior
in
to
front
the
of you,
break.
one of the officers saying that.
But I know a
brains
20 gauge is
on
the
ceiling,
perfect
there's
size for the bore for a
blood
12
all
gauge.
over the place, correct?
I don't recall them saying brain was upward. I don't recall.
Okay. And further, you, as you're discussing this with them, indicate.
No, not shooting a banana with a shotgun. When I say the shotgun bananas, the shotgun barrel peels apart because of the pressures. That's what I meant. It
You
peels
indicate there are
apart because the
multiple,
20
or
gauge
someone
is
indicates
it's a
to you there are
perfect
multiple
it's a perfect plug.
blackout rounds
And so the pressure doesn't
around
have
Maggie's
anywhere to go.
body in-
And so the
in
barrel
vicinity,
just
correct?
peels apart.
Not rounds, but shell casings.
So bananas.
Now, let me ask you this. When you got there, didn't the fire chief and the fire department arrive before you did?
No, sir. I was first on scene.
Okay. Did they arrive while you were there?
One of
Bugs
the
Bunny style,
fire
yeah.
rescue workers, I
Bugs
believe it
Bunny
was Barry
style, you got
McCoy.
it.
And when you got there, we hear unidentified person, and in your notes you indicate it was the fire chief, I believe, that indicated to you, pointed out to you tire tracks, and you went over and looked at those tire tracks, and there were multiple tire tracks coming and going, correct?
I don't know that someone indicated them to me. I believe I just saw them.
Okay. And what did you do to preserve those?
The tire tracks, nothing.
And you certainly are not an expert in tire tracks,
I'm not.
so you couldn't tell whether it was multiple vehicles or one vehicle,
No,
and it may have been multiple vehicles.
may have been.
Did you take pictures of the tracks?
I did not take any pictures of the scene.
Instruct anyone to take pictures of the tracks?
No, sir, that's not my job.
When SLED arrived, did you tell them about the tracks?
No, sir, not my job.
Do you regret not doing that?
It's not part of my job description.
So what's your job to even tell them there were multiple tire tracks?
If it had come up, if I had been asked, yes.
And in addition to that, since they were not secured in any way, multiple vehicles, law enforcement vehicles and others, drove over those tracks.
That's possible. I wasn't over there the whole time to know what kind of vehicles were driving in the area.
Well, by the time SLED got there, did you strike that? You never took SLED over and pointed out tire tracks.
Not to my recollection, I did not.
Was there somebody there at this, with your department that should have done that?
I have no idea what they do with their job descriptions as far as what they point out to additional investigators.
Did somebody from Fire and Rescue point out footprints?
I believe on my body camera there is a fire rescue individual pointing out some footprints.
Okay. Did you take pictures of those?
I did not.
Did you tell SLED about them?
I did not.
So nobody attempted to determine whether those were Maggie's footprints, Paul's footprints, or at least that night there was no effort by you or your department to preserve those?
By me, no. I cannot speak for everyone else.
Okay. And let me ask you this.
Yeah. And then, yeah, so
How about go to,
the gauge of the
44,
shotgun refers to how
39,
big the shell is.
And let's watch.
And then
at least
when you
10,
talk
if not
about
15
the shot
seconds
within the shell, yeah, you can have double aught buckshot within a 20 gauge. You can basically have any shot within any gauge. The size of the gauge somewhat determines the amount of shot, so you won't have the same amount of shot in there. So in a 12 gauge shotgun for double aught buck, I think it's 12 pellets. But for a 20 gauge, because it's smaller, it would be like 8 or something. You get the idea, right? Because the double aught aspect refers to the size of the pellets. The gauge refers to the size of the shell. So you can have any shot within any shell. It's just that the size of the shell would dictate how much of it you would have within the shell. So now we know all of our shotgun stuff. 9 is standard for 12 gauge. Thank you. So also it would depend on the length. It also depends on the length of the shotgun shell, because shotgun shells are typically 2 3/4, but they also come in a 3 length and a 3.5 length. So it depends how long the shell is.
It's up on the screen.
It's up on the screen. I apologize.
Can you take it down, please? Thank you.
We have to prepare the transcript. It's synced with the video.
Well, I object to that. Your Honor, I object. This transcript's not been provided. There's no need for a transcript. The officer is here. They can play the video and he can comment on it.
The transcript being offered.
I'm using it to direct the audio visual man to the
Well, you have questions for the witness, questions for your IT guy. You're just reading, ready to proceed. I understand. We're waiting for you. Okay.
Yep.
So now we've learned a lot about shotguns. So 12 gauge is probably the most common. 20 gauge is probably the second most common. Then after that we got 16 gauge, 410. 10 gauge exists, but I don't know anyone who uses it. And the smaller the gauge number, the bigger it is. So 10 gauge is bigger than 12 gauge, is bigger than 16, is bigger than 20. So it's reverse of what you would expect, I suppose. So the smaller the number, the bigger it is. So, except of course for 410, because that's being measured in a completely different way, because complications. So yeah. So how's a 20 gauge plug a 12? Because a 20 gauge shell is basically the perfect size of the bore of a 12 gauge. That's why. Right, the entire cartridge is the size of the 12 gauge.
Rather than having to play this, let me just cut to the chase. It's
Oh.
taking too much time.
A shotgun shell has a lip, right,
On
to
this transfer, on this tape,
the
fire rescue person says to you, I believe you
shotgun
agree
shell
with me,
itself goes
set of
into
prints
the bore,
behind the trailer.
and then there's this, there's the
You
metal
were told
part on the end of the shell.
Again, this
I'm not
It's a little
publishing,
bit
I'm
bigger.
asking.
Right,
Did
it's a little bit
you-
bigger.
I object.
And so
I haven't
that
heard a question yet.
sits
I'd like to make.
outside the bore.
Were you told
20 gauge,
by fire and
its
rescue,
lip
there's a set of prints behind the
Is
trailer?
basically the size of
Yes.
a
Okay.
12 gauge bore. So
And,
the entire shell, including the
Kurt,
lip,
is it not
goes,
CSI or Slam who does the crime scene photos?
goes into
Did he
the.
tell you that they attempted
I don't know who
to
does
not
crime
disturb
scene
those
photos in this
footprints in any
jurisdiction.
way?
It just depends on the
I don't
protocol.
recall
Protocol is
exactly what was said.
Let me further ask you. You asked Mr. Murdaugh, we heard this on the tape, you talked about the tire tracks coming and going, and he told you those weren't his tire tracks, correct?
He did say that they were not.
Okay. And further,
Elise Lane wants me to be quiet. Sorry that my explanation of shotgun sizes and stuff was distracting.
he indicated to
That
you,
was asking me
Mr.
questions. I
Murdaugh
was trying to be
did,
informative.
that he
I'm sorry,
felt
that was
this
a problem for
related
you.
to the boat case, and you indicated you knew about the boat case. You read about the boat case. Paul had been charged with 3 counts of felony DUI, killing a young girl and wounding 2 others, correct?
I don't know much details about that case. I really don't.
Okay. But Mr. Murdaugh indicated to you that the threats made against Paul,
He did.
and that he even got in a fight once about it.
I believe he said punched.
Okay. And so on the scene, he believed that Paul's death was connected to someone angry about the boat case, correct?
Object to that, Your Honor, as to what he believed. Asking the
What?
witness what another person believed.
Objection is overruled.
Thank you. On the scene, Mr. Murdaugh indicated to you he thought the death of his son was related to his son's involvement in the death of the young lady and the injury of 2 others in the boat case, correct?
It appeared that that's what he was getting at, yes.
On the tape. Now, let's talk a little bit about the preservation of the crime scene. What did you do other than put yellow tape up to preserve the crime scene?
That is about the extent of my job, is to put up the tape and make sure people that don't need to cross it don't cross it.
And I noticed that there were officers walking around putting little pieces of tape near shell casings.
There was one officer doing that, yes.
And in the process of doing that, I didn't see any lights other than maybe a flashlight. Were there any, did y'all put up any sort of high-intensity lights so people could make sure they weren't stepping on something in the dark?
At that point, there was no light, no additional lighting that had been put up. No.
But you and your officers were walking through that entire area, is that correct?
We were walking in the area, yes.
Okay, and did you actually walk, I mean, the feed room, and let me, maybe this is the best way to do this.
Pictures, please.
Yeah. So, Mike, yeah, the 20 will slide right down into the barrel. That's right. So the 12 gauge, the lip, sits outside the bore, but a 20 gauge, the lip is small enough to fit inside the bore. So the entire thing goes into the bore and then just acts like a plug. That's what, yeah. And then now your shotgun is plugged, and so when you fire your 12 gauge with a plugged barrel, banana. And it's a somewhat frequent thing. It's not, because 12 gauge is probably the most common. 20 gauge is probably the second most common. It's not unusual for shotgun people to shoot multiple different gauges because different gauges are used for different reasons, especially like in shooting sports.
Photographs. I'm going to use the Elmo in just a
So
moment.
it's not unusual
to
for
show this witness
shotgun people to use
evidence
multiple different shotguns with
without
multiple different
objection
gauges
by
and
the
have
state,
multiple
as I
different gauges
understand
of ammo. And so it is
Mr. Mark, I have
not.
no objection. I would note they're graphic and they need to be shown.
It happens with some regularity. A 20 gauge
Mark.
will wind up inside a 12 gauge, and then the 12 gauge will.
What would the exhibit numbers be for the defense? Defense 1 and 2 are admitted without objection.
So, thank you. I'm going to first show you the picture. See if you can identify it, please.
That would be a picture of Paul.
You
And the
can't
second
shoot
one,
different.
which would be
Well,
exhibit number 2.
Picture of Maggie.
I was about to say you
When
can't
you say
shoot different
picture of
gauges
Paul,
in the
picture of
same
Maggie,
gun,
these
because
are
that's
crime
not
scene photos,
actually
correct?
true. It depends on the gun. As a
They
typical
appear to be,
rule,
yes.
no. As a
This is what you
typical
saw
rule,
that night?
most guns are
Yes.
single gauge.
Both of these pictures.
Yes.
Accurately depict what you saw that night.
Yes.
But it's not uncommon to shoot multiple different guns with multiple different gauges and multiple different ammo and get the ammo mixed up, and it happens. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, some guns have an adapter. Yeah, I know.
Let me get the glare going.
Maybe during the break we'll look up some stuff on shotgun shells so we can learn a little bit more visual aids.
You've got the screen right there, you can check.
So as you look at this, I want to make sure I understand. One of Paul's feet is still inside. This is the feed room behind him, correct?
Yes.
And this is his head, lots of blood, and this would be a part of his brain lying next to him, correct?
I don't know if that's part of his brain or not.
All right. So it's fair to say you didn't know whether that was part of his brain. When you first saw him, you didn't know whether his injuries were catastrophic and he was dead. Or did you?
It was very clear that it was catastrophic.
Okay. That's great. Now, when you came upon the scene, clearly this feed room was part of the crime scene, correct?
Yes.
Now, you're taught to keep the crime scene pristine, correct?
As pristine as possible, yes.
There was no reason for you to go in there, was there?
Me at the time, no.
Okay. Was there any reason for the police, before the SLED crime folks showed up, was there any reason for y'all to go in there?
There was no reason for me to go in there. I cannot speak if there was a reason for another officer to have gone in there.
Well, let me ask you this. Did y'all have any sort of crime scene expert with you that night, someone that processes crime scenes?
Investigators do process crime scenes.
Okay. Do you remember going in that meeting room?
I don't remember if I did specifically or
But
not.
you shouldn't have if you did, correct?
It's not to say that I shouldn't have. If there was something that needed to be done in there, then yes.
I guess what I'm getting at is, I think one of the, and you would agree with me, one of the cardinal rules of a crime scene is keep it pristine. Don't walk over things. Try to preserve tire tracks. Get pictures of them. Footprints. All those sorts of things. Was somebody with the officers with you, were you in charge of the scene?
I was in charge of the deputies that were under my immediate supervision until someone higher than me arrived on scene.
And were those deputies directed by you or anyone to do something to preserve the tire tracks? Pictures? Cordon them off? Cover them up?
I did not give anyone that instruction, no.
So you didn't do that. In terms of Paul, where Paul was laying, was anybody instructed, put a cordon around him? There's no reason to go into the feed room. There's no reason to do anything obtrusive until the SLED crime scene process. And they're on the way at this point, right?
I believe they were, yes.
And so if okay, so let's put the other one up. And identify this for me, please.
That's Maggie Murdaugh.
Your Honor, may we approach your group?
So yeah, so we're just basically attacking the crime scene in terms of its preservation. There were other tire tracks that might not have been preserved. There were other footprints that might not have been preserved. You were walking around the scene, contaminating the scene with footprints, right? Which, this isn't necessarily a fault of the officer. He's responding to a situation in which someone's been shot, and there are, as we've sort of discussed before, there are a lot of competing priorities. It's like, securing the scene versus dealing with the person who might be injured versus dealing with the suspect, versus checking for firearms versus, right? So there's sort of like a lot of things going on at once. And so that doesn't necessarily mean anyone did anything wrong, but it also means that the scene wasn't as preserved perhaps as it could have been in some sort of idealized world. And so the scene might have been contaminated in some way that might be a problem. And so that's basically the question, and it's perfectly valid, right? It's perfectly valid. So
Stop bugging me.
And can you identify this for the jury, please?
That picture? Yeah. It's Maggie Murdaugh.
After she's been killed.
That's correct.
And by the way, when you saw her was it apparent that she was deceased? You believe? But have you ever seen a dead body before?
I have seen multiple, yes.
Many, right?
Yes.
So you're sort of an expert in this area, who's dead, who's not, who ought to get EMS there to check them out or not, correct? You make that call often?
Yes.
Okay. But you could understand, obviously, Alex Murdaugh's concern that they might be alive, that maybe, you're not saying that he shouldn't be concerned that somebody check out both Maggie and Paul to make sure they were dead, right?
He was very concerned about that, yes.
Okay. Now, as to Maggie Murdaugh, we see these numbers. Did y'all do these numbers, or were they done after y'all were there?
I don't know when those numbers were done. They were not placed by myself.
For your team?
I can't say that for sure, certain.
We see that in the video, that they're putting down yellow tape. They're not putting these down, correct?
That's correct.
Now, you also, according to the video we saw, a number of your officers are walking around marking where cartridges are, right?
They were.
Did they pick any of them up?
No, not to my knowledge.
Well, later on, we see them talking to you and others on the video where they're saying these rounds came from a blackout. They were blackout rounds. For blackout.
300 blackout, yes, sir.
Right. I mean, did they get down on their hands and knees and look, or I mean, did they?
You would have to ask them. I don't know what they did to know that they were 300 blackout rounds.
Well, who were those officers that were walking around her without a light on, perhaps stepping on evidence? Correct. Who were those officers?
Deputy McDowell and Deputy Pruitt were both in that area.
Were they doing that pursuant to your instruction?
They were not specifically instructed to do it. They just took the initiative to do it.
Okay, I don't know. I want to play. You ready? Do I have to turn the Elmo off?
Are you good? Yeah, we're good.
Those desks over there.
Okay, so this is your officer is putting a sheet on Paul's body?
Not putting a sheet on. The sheet was already there.
Already there. Okay, continue, please.
People just fire rescue might have some more sheets we can steal. That's why it shouldn't be anybody. Law enforcement. There is law enforcement.
Oh, there's Nate. Hi, Nate. Thanks for coming on, Bo.
Hey, I was just telling you, I'm trapped in the back. I'm trapped.
Inside the feed room.
Just inside that doorway was Deputy McDowell.
Okay. Were you the president? Oh, is that your body cam? So you're watching him do it, right?
That's correct.
Should he have done that?
Stand where he's standing.
Standing inside the feed room.
It's part of the crime scene. We're all standing inside of the crime scene.
Inside what?
The crime scene. We are all standing in the same crime scene.
I understand the same crime scene, but clearly you believe, based on discussion, and everyone in your unit believed, that the fatal shot was made where he's basically standing, correct? In that area.
Where we are all standing.
Yeah.
He's trying to
Yes, sir.
Is that procedure to walk around on top of an area where shots have been fired? That perhaps, and I think
also
even
add
in
your
this,
name
they're
to the
talking about
description.
Tissue or brain matter
Video,
laying there.
Nate, since you're here.
I mean, aren't you supposed to? You don't put anything on your feet.
Question, there's not a question in that statement.
Yeah, he's making
Mr. Stain, you must pose questions.
Did you in any way have your men or women put protective gear on their feet? I saw you put gloves on, but did they put anything to insulate themselves from contaminating the scene?
On their feet, no.
In many instances, departments around the country have people dress in a gown to keep their DNA, their hair, from contaminating the scene. Did you do that?
We do not on road patrol of Gallatin County as standard practice, no.
You do not do that.
Not a standard practice, no.
Have you ever done that?
I have not.
Have you ever had something covering your feet when you're walking on a crime scene?
I couldn't tell you that for sure.
Now, if we later on find, and did you notice bloody footprints? Well, first of all, did you notice bloody footprints inside the feed room?
I don't remember seeing any.
Sorry?
I don't remember seeing any bloody footprints.
Okay. If there were bloody footprints in the feed room, could they have been created by you or your men?
They could have been created by anyone walking in that area, sure.
And you're walking in there, or your men are walking in there, correct?
Yeah, correct.
That's a good cross.
And you think that's standard operating procedure?
Well, you do your best not to contaminate anything.
And this is your best?
What you're looking at right now is standard procedure.
To walk in an area where there's blood, where there's brain matter, where there's, and I believe there was wadding laying on the floor.
Objection.
I don't recall.
But you would agree with me that you have these procedures so that you don't contaminate the crime scene, so that you don't destroy evidence like those tire tracks or those footprints, or leave your DNA, or in some way alter the scene so that you would agree with me, so that, let me finish the question, so that if there is exculpatory or inculpatory evidence that would help you find the perpetrator and prosecute him, or evidence that would clear somebody, that was destroyed. Some of that was destroyed that night because your department, and maybe even SWAT, didn't preserve that evidence. Isn't that correct?
I'm not sure if I fully understand your question.
The question is this: if you were,
This is why you want to pay me to be your lawyer. You want me to be the answer that question.
your men are standing in the spot, and there was evidence there, or the tire tracks that weren't preserved, or the footprints that weren't preserved. That evidence could either incriminate somebody or exculpate somebody. Correct?
Could, yes.
That's why you don't do this, right?
That's why you don't contaminate the evidence, correct?
That's what he wanted. And now he's got him admitting to contaminating the evidence. It's a great cross. The cross examination was good. Tire tracks. No. This. No. And you don't do that because it could be somebody else. That's how you cross a cop, people. That's how you cross them. Procedures all messed up. Now you don't know what's going on. And with a circumstantial case, which this is a circumstantial case, it makes it even harder to show now. Whose footprints were those? Whose tire tracks were those?
You put yellow tape around the kennel, right?
We put it around the whole area.
Did you put it so that folks couldn't drive in and out?
They were not to go past where my vehicle was parked. I believe that was the extent of the yellow tape.
Yeah, but between your vehicle and the entrance, there was none of those tire tracks were preserved.
Entrance of
the property. That if somebody driven into the property.
You mean from the main road?
Thank you very much
to
to
the
the
main
444. If you're
all
watching
the
587
vehicles were
lights,
coming in
we
on that
do
driveway.
really appreciate everyone who's
So
here.
if
and
somebody
spending
had
time
come
with
in
us.
and left.
Thank you for supporting this channel. You guys kick ass.
Who committed the murders, whatever tire tracks that were left were obliterated by your men. Is that right?
It's possible.
Whatever tire tracks were obliterated by your men. This is great. It's good lawyering. You know, I like to see good lawyering.
Yeah.
Were you there when the coroner arrived?
Given my extent of the time there, I would assume so, but I don't remember
But you don't remember
specifically.
seeing the coroner.
I may have. I don't remember specifically.
Apparently, according to the body cam, you didn't talk to him.
Not on my body camera, but it could have been after the body camera was turned off. I don't know.
And why did you turn it off?
Why was the body camera turned off?
Yeah.
Once my specific job of doing any primary investigation after my initial arrival is completed, and I'm not going to be doing anything further to investigate, it's no longer needed.
Hey, please, the court. You were asked a series of questions about contaminating evidence. Are you aware that any evidence was contaminated in this case?
I'm not.
Did you engage in everything you could to avoid contaminating evidence?
Yes.
Did you, in fact, instruct your deputies set up a crime scene and instruct them to avoid areas where evidence might be contaminated?
We did everything we possibly could to avoid contaminating evidence.
Your officers all have basic training in trying to avoid contamination of evidence?
Yes.
Are you also, though, as first responders, in a fluid situation, doing the best you can to assess what's going on?
Correct.
It's not your job to do the actual crime scene investigation work, is that correct?
Not at all.
Where's the objection to leading questions?
You were asked about whether or not you had any meetings with prosecutors. Is it common for law enforcement witnesses or any witnesses to meet with the prosecutors prior to a trial?
Very common.
Okay. Did anybody ask you to do anything but express your accurate and honest opinions and observations about what you observed at this scene?
No.
He's coming out too hot.
You were asked about this particular shotgun
something there.
right here. This 12-gauge shotgun. This is the shotgun that Alex Murdaugh had when you arrived at the scene. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you were asked about the shells right here. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you unload this weapon?
I did not.
Was it unloaded by somebody else after you turned it over to them?
Too fast.
Yes.
Too fast. Slow down.
It's too fast. It's too fast.
Gotta slow down.
You asked a little bit about the 300 blackout casings or cases that were at the scene. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And just real quick, explain to the jury what a casing or a case is, please.
So a casing would be what would be left after the projectile has been fired through a weapon.
After it had been fired, the shell that comes out of the gun and lands on the ground near the victim. Is that
That's
correct?
That's correct.
So it's the remnants of a fired round. Is that right?
That's correct.
There were multiple ones of those blackouts surrounding Maggie. Is that correct?
That is correct.
They must just.
You were asked a lot about the tire tracks, and you just happened to notice those over behind the defendant's vehicle. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And we had a still image put into evidence, exhibit number 5. This is it right here, which is the still image. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. And the still image doesn't reflect as good as what the video does. Is that right? You can see it
The
clearly.
video shows it much better.
Much better. All right. Were these like tracks in the dirt, or were these just impressions in the grass, in the dewy grass?
They appear to be impressions on the dewy grass.
All right. They weren't like tracks in the dirt that you saw, correct?
No.
All right. I'm going to go back to the video. I'm playing it at approximately 25 minutes and 11 seconds.
Maybe. Okay. From earlier, but only 2 were mine.
Did you go out this way at all?
No.
Police right.
Bring back.
Just go over to that corner of the building.
I'm almost to you. Let me see what we have first, and whether or not we can handle that part or not.
I see quite a few tire tracks in here. Were any of these you going in and out?
No, I came in here and I left one time and I came back.
Okay.
But the rest of them, maybe from earlier, but only 2 were mine.
Did you go out this way?
So the images that we just saw, those were the dewy impressions in the grass that you were just talking about. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the defendant said 2 of them were mine, and the rest of them may have been from earlier. Is that correct?
Yes.
You were asked a little bit about the boat case. Did you have any detailed knowledge or understanding of the boat case when you arrived at the scene?
No.
You just knew very generally that there was some boat case. Is that right?
Yes, it had been in the news.
Did you even realize that this was that Paul Murdaugh when you arrived on the scene?
Not until he had brought up the boat incident.
And who brought up the boat incident?
Mr. Murdaugh did.
And within a few minutes of you arriving, he's the one that brought up the boat incident. Is that
He did.
correct? And he offered that right out of the gate as a possible explanation for what happened here. Is that right?
Yes.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Anything further?
Your Honor.
I don't know. Somebody speculating. They see 2 people that could have been the people with the. I don't know. That doesn't.
Did you find it unreasonable for him to say that his son, who'd been involved in this incident, who'd been threatened on numerous occasions, been punched, he told you he'd been punched, right?
He did.
Okay. That was a possible explanation, not implausible, for somebody killing Paul. You didn't bite back on him, did you?
No.
And it was, in his mind, apparently the only reasonable explanation that occurred, right?
I don't know what was in his mind.
Well, I mean, that's what he told you. That's what he believed.
That was the statement that he made, yes.
Okay. And just one other follow-up question. You were asked if there was any evidence, the dewy tire tracks. This was at 10 o'clock at night. Was there dew on the ground already?
It was pretty humid out there. There's a lot of
It was
dew.
humid.
Yeah.
It wasn't in like in the
dew.
morning.
This was not morning time.
So, but and are you telling me no one could have looked, no expert could have looked and said, you know, that's a Suburban, that's a pickup truck, that's no one could do that? Or do
I'm
you-
not going to pretend to know what an expert in that kind of stuff can and
Objection,
can't
call
do.
for
But you're not an expert. Did you believe those tire tracks would last until SLED got there?
Yes, it appeared that they probably would.
Did you point them out to SLED?
Did I do it?
Did you point them out to SLED?
I did not.
You may step down. Call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Corporal McDowell.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give to the court in this trial shall be the truth, so help you God?
I do. The last witness
you.
did all right,
You'll
but
have
I
a seat
think
and
I
adjust
think they
that
poked enough
microphone.
holes in it to say,
Make
hey,
sure
this
you
is sloppy.
speak into that
It sounds like it might be
microphone.
going down
State
the
your name
OJ
and
route
spell your
here.
last name.
You're so, you're standing in the place where the people got shot and all the evidence is there.
My name is
No-
Chad McDowell. The last name is spelled McDowell.
Corporal McDowell, how you doing today?
Good.
Tell the jury where you work, please.
I work for College and County Sheriff's Office. I'm assigned to the road patrol as a canine handler.
Okay, and can you just give us a quick background of who you are, where you grew up, and how you ended up in your career in law enforcement?
Sure. I grew up in Colleton County, went to Colleton County High School, went to college at Tri-County Technical College, where I studied criminal justice. Once I reached age, I came home, was hired by Colleton County Sheriff's Office, left for a couple of years to go work for Jasper County, and then came back to Colleton. I've been assigned to road patrol at Colleton.
All right. And what year did you first start working for Colleton County Sheriff's Department, or began your law enforcement career?
2016.
And what's your current, you said you're a corporal now, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And what is your current assignment? What are your duties?
I'm still assigned to road patrol. I'm a canine handler.
All right. And you say canine. Explain to the jury what that is.
So I have a canine that is assigned to me. We respond to certain calls, or if we're requested by another deputy for narcotics searches for suspects, things of that matter.
All right. And canine is a dog, correct?
That's correct.
All right. What's your dog's name?
Evo.
Evo? What kind of dog is Evo?
He's a Belgian Malinois.
Malinois?
Yep.
Is that kind of like a German Shepherd?
Kind of short-haired, pointy ears.
I got you. Short hair, pointy ears. Is Evo typically with you when you're out on patrol?
Yes, sir.
Was Evo with you the night of June 7th, 2021?
Yes, sir.
Were you a corporal then at that time?
No, sir. I was a deputy.
All right. And who was on the squad that you were on?
Sergeant Daniel Green, Corporal Elise Janicki, myself, and Deputy Pruitt, Cody Pruitt.
All right. And so who was your immediate supervisor?
It would have been Corporal Janicki.
Okay. And then above that is?
Sergeant Green.
All right. And then above that?
Lieutenant Nettles.
All right. And then above that?
Captain Krause.
Okay.
Chain of command.
What shift were you working the night of June 7th, 2021?
Yes, sir, I was.
And that was in Colleton County?
Yes, sir.
And what shift were you working that night?
Night shift.
Did you ultimately respond to a call for service at 4147 Moselle Road?
Yes, sir.
And you actually went there?
I did.
And did you come to the incident location at the kennels at that property at 4147 Moselle Road?
I did.
Is that in Colleton County?
It is.
Were you, when you arrived, what other first responders were on scene to your recollection?
Sergeant Green was there. There was one other fire rescue personnel vehicle in there. I believe the rest were staged, the best I can remember. When I say staged, I mean at the head of the driveway. There may have been a couple of other apparatuses on scene.
And do you recall which driveway you entered? Did you enter the driveway near the kennels? Where you came from the
Yes,
kennels?
sir. It was the same driveway everyone else entered.
So you were parked behind
Sergeant Green.
Green's?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What did you do after that? After you got out of your vehicle, what did you do?
I approached the crime scene. I was trying to make my way to Sergeant Green to see what he needed me to do. I made my way through the crime scene as carefully as I could. And I approached Sergeant Green, saw that he was interviewing the only person on scene, so I went back to my vehicle.
Okay. And did you see who he was interviewing?
Mr. Murdaugh, yes, sir.
Do you see him in the courtroom here today?
Yes, sir.
Can you point him out?
Yes, sir. He's in the middle, navy blue suit.
Your Honor, can the record reflect he's identified the defendant?
It does.
I'm going to show you
I love this judge.
what's been marked as
So not just like
Okay.
it's done.
Admitted, not objected.
And this is a disc, but I want you to take a look at it and see if you recognize this disc.
Yes, sir, I do.
All right, and what is on this disc?
It'd be body cam footage from my body cam that I wore.
All right, and how do you know that this is that body cam footage?
It has my initials on it.
All right, so you reviewed this and put your initials on it, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Chain of custody.
All right.
The last cop, he did an all right job.
I can get
He got
input,
beat up on Cross. Cross beat him up a little bit. I would say that was a win, especially with this because this case is a circumstantial case, right? It's all circumstantial. That first witness didn't help his circumstantial.
It didn't really do a lot for me, to be quite honest. It didn't do a lot for me to move the needle. He arrived on the scene. Alex Murdaugh was there.
But what about the fact that he, the tire tracks, the footprints, like he just
When you got this call for service, were you currently on another call for service, or are you just out on patrol?
No, sir, I was just out on patrol.
He got some of this audio part.
Once you got that call for service, what did you do? Did you activate your lights and
I activated
sirens?
lights and sirens and responded to the incident location.
And once you do that, do you make all haste to get to that incident location as fast, but it also as reasonably safe as you can?
Yes, sir.
Is that standard operating procedure?
Yes, sir.
The first 10 minutes, sorry. The first 10 minutes of this body cam are essentially you driving to the scene, is that correct, roughly?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to fast forward to closer in time when you arrive. I heard proceed to the route. What was that?
I had a GPS activated on my phone.
Just like most people use, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Take a slight left turn. In a quarter mile, arrive at 4147 Roselle Road.
So updates on sale, Mozo.
Are these the kennels that you saw when you arrived at the property?
Yes, sir.
And to the right is sort of the shed or the hangar, is that correct?
That's correct.
Siri, where is the crime scene? Siri, who committed the murder?
Let me ask you this. You're obviously serving as a road patrol officer, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Do you? What is your job as a road patrol officer, as a first responder, when you come upon a scene like this? What is your particular role as you arrive at something like this?
We go on scene, we secure the scene, meaning make sure there's no active threat for other arriving first responders. We'll preserve the scene to the best of our ability and then turn the scene over to arriving detectives.
When you arrive at a scene like this, are you constantly not only paying attention for any threat or anything like that, but also making sure that you don't disturb or any sort of evidence that may be at the scene?
Yes, sir.
Is that part of your general training and standard operating procedure?
It is.
You also have to couple that, though, with the duties of a first responder, which is to get to that scene, to secure it, make sure there's no active threats, and get it under control. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So the duties of a first responder have both of those sort of balancing together. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
But are you constantly always looking around for evidence, not only to identify it, but also to assure that you don't disturb anything? Is that your general?
Judging, Your Honor, weeding.
They've been leading all the
Thank you,
whole
Your Honor.
thing. What are you talking about?
What is your
Dixie now?
general training as a road officer as it relates to
He's gonna sit there like
coming
an
upon
hour
a scene and looking
The
for
whole thing was
evidence?
been leading.
Our number one duty would be safety. Number two, we're looking for evidence so as not to disturb it.
Thank you. Right there to the right, what is that? To the right of the screen.
There you go. Join us.
It'd be Miss Murdaugh's body.
Maggie Murdaugh. Margaret Brandstetter Murdaugh.
Who are those individuals right there?
Sergeant Green and Mr. Murdaugh.
How you doing?
What did the defendant say to you right there?
He said, "How are you doing?"
Did you know him?
No, sir.
How you doing? That's what he said?
Yes, sir.
Pretty southern, man. I wouldn't put that past anybody.
He's a killer. He killed her.
9/15/68.
Okay, and what's your son's first name? You said Paul?
Paul Terry Murdaugh.
And what's his birthday?
4. What are they covering him up?
Tell them they don't have to do that. They don't need to.
Hey, he's asked that if we don't have to disturb anything, not to. We've got a sled on the way. Yep.
All right, what were you asking fire and rescue to do at that point?
Just to try to preserve it the best they could. If they
You
didn't
asked them- but what were you specifically asking them not to do?
cover the bodies if they didn't have to.
All right, and what was their response, though?
I couldn't make it out. I believe he said we're covering them for family responding. I couldn't make it out.
He's asked that if we don't have to disturb anything, not to. We've got a sled on the way. Yep.
That's it.
Do you recall now?
Again, it sounds like he says we're going to cover them up because of the family being here.
Okay. Does the family being here?
That's what it sounds like.
All right.
Right through here, go around this way here. So it's calling us.
Yes, I agree.
I told everybody else to cancel, so we won't really have to come down here.
Thank you. Hey, Cody, I need a piece of that tape whenever you get done.
What did you just ask Cody for?
A piece of tape, piece of crime scene tape.
All right, and who was Cody?
Deputy Pruitt, he's the one that you see there with the yellow crime scene tape.
And why did you ask Deputy Pruitt for some crime scene tape?
I had observed a shell casing on the ground. I wanted to mark it so that it didn't become disturbed.
Your general duties as an officer, you observed something and you asked for some tape to mark it. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's what you were previously describing your role is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. If y'all don't mind, just mark them. Do what? Okay. I got a casing right here, so watch your step.
That's what I'm thinking of now.
That casing that you saw, did you recognize what kind of ammunition it was?
Yes, sir.
And what kind of ammunition was it?
300 blackout casing.
And how could you tell it was a 300 blackout casing?
Just my own personal experience. I own a 300 blackout, and I recognized it.
You recognize the case from your own experience?
Yes, sir.
All right.
It's 300 blackout.
While Audrey in chat asks if there are no security cameras at Wayne Murdaugh. This property is 1,770 acres. So, no.
Did you observe any dogs in the kennels?
I did.
Do you remember how many or where they were?
I do not remember.
More than one dog, though?
I don't remember.
They said they had several casings by her body, but
that's
this one will be a little bit
7
harder
square
to later, so I want to mark it real fast.
For our international audience, by the way. 7 square kilometers. So that's the house. So no.
When you marked that casing, were you careful not to disturb its location where you found it?
Yes, sir. I placed the tape beside it and then placed a rock on top so it wouldn't blow away.
Why are there so many shell casings and only one?
Sorry to do that to everyone. Well, what was that loud noise?
It's just my windshield wipers.
And why was it making that noise?
They need to be changed.
They had removed all the moisture, I guess.
I don't see anybody. Can I see a couple more pieces? I found some more there. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out why there's 300 blackout. I'm trying to figure out why there's so many shell casings, but only one gunshot went to the back of each head. Not my job to figure that out. I'm just curious. I only saw one more casing, but just in case I see more. Daniel put his car in there.
Yeah.
So, no.
I interpreted
This is,
the earlier question as asking why there
I'll
was
tell
no
you about this
doorbell
one.
footage of what we're talking about right now. That's how I interpret the
There's
question.
one
So I'm not
there.
aware if there's a
There's
doorbell
blood over here.
or similar cameras at other parts of the property. So sorry if my answer seemed a little flippant. I misinterpreted the question.
You looking at shell casings? 300 blackout. Sheriff?
Those cases that you were marking right there, did you at all disturb the location where you saw them?
No, sir.
Is it your job to be doing a crime scene collection for this case, or are you just doing that to assist those who will do that will arrive at a later time?
No, sir. I don't collect anything. I'm just marking it so that they're not disturbed.
Probably. Yeah, those will be easy
My
to find. I was
favorite
just
duo,
marking a
Orange
couple
Heart,
that
Blue
were
Heart. Just
in the
wanted to
gravel.
show
It might
some
be
love
harder
and
to see
say
at some
thanks for the
point.
coverage and explanation.
Thank you very much for your kind super chat. It's appreciated as
Y'all
always.
familiar with this family?
I wasn't until he told me.
I'll fill you in later. I don't think there's going to be anything from anybody to do here.
What did you just say right there?
I don't think there's going to be anything for me and Evo to do here.
All right. What did you mean by that?
There was no article search that needed to be conducted right then and there. Putting Evo on the ground could have caused more of a disturbance than just leaving him up.
Because that's a...
You said for Evo to do?
Yeah.
There is video, but they're not showing any video, and they're apparently not even showing it to the gallery by the court's order for whatever reason. So, audio yes, but no video for whatever reason. So, we can't see it at least.
The gentleman in the white shirt is the husband of her, Paul Murdaugh. Paul Murdaugh is the guy in the photo next.
Yeah.
It's going to be retaliation from family.
He did have a firearm where I pulled up. It's a shotgun.
All right.
Y'all, the dog is trying to say, the chicken did it. You aren't listening to me.
I'm buying that, Joe. The dog may very well be saying the chicken did it.
I'm going to now show you a portion of what's been previously admitted to evidence as Exhibit 1.
And thank you for the super chat. It's by your guys' support that this channel can keep going. So it really does make a huge difference. Thank you.
And for the record, I'm starting at 4227. Who's that to the right of the screen right there?
That would be me.
All right, and what are you about to do?
Step inside and assist CID with lifting that sheet.
All right, and were you asked to do that?
Yes, sir.
And who asked you to do that?
Captain Chapman.
All right, and where's Captain Chapman in this image?
In the middle.
And is he a senior officer to you?
At that time.
Okay. And I noticed before you moved, what did you do?
Turned my light on.
And why did you turn on your light?
So that I could plainly see what was underneath me where I was going.
Did you disturb any evidence or anything as you started to go into the feed room?
No, sir.
Were you careful to avoid doing that?
Yes, sir.
Did you kick any shell casings or waddings or anything like that when you went into the feed room?
No, sir.
Did you step on any bloody footprints when you went into the feed room?
No, sir.
If you had seen something like that before you stepped in there, what would you have done?
I would have stopped and notified the detective.
Well, the dad's over there. Actually, hold on. Keep this one good. Fire rescue might have some more sheets we can steal.
That's right. It shouldn't be like
Make sure also to check out my friend's channel, Nate the Lawyer's channel as well. Check that out. Make sure to
You
subscribe.
recall
If you're not
what, if
subscribed,
anything, was
Nate the Lawyer kicks
laying
ass.
on Paul's rear end?
He gives me good advice.
His cell phone, or
on
a
YouTubing.
cell phone.
He helps me figure out how to YouTube better.
Is that it in this image right here?
Yes,
We're all
sir.
trying to YouTube better.
This is the shortest one of blackouts ever made.
I haven't asked the dad about the phone, but dad did say he came over and checked their pulses. Beyond that, I don't know what else he did. He did have a shotgun with him. I have secured that in my vehicle.
I do not hunt, no. I tried it once and I hated it. It required me getting it way too early, sitting in the cold, and not much happening. So I was like, this is for other people.
Did you kind of jump out of the feed room just then?
Yes, sir.
Did you turn on your light before you did so?
I believe so.
I do shoot. I'm a primarily pistol shooter, but
Watch
I
it
also
again.
shot some shotgun in my time. Keep shooting.
Did you jump out when you left the feed room?
Yes, sir.
And why'd you jump out like that?
Try not to disturb the body. It was easier to leap out than to try to step.
Did you enter the feed room at any point after that, to your recollection?
Not to my recollection.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as defense exhibit number 1 and see if you recognize this particular image.
Yes, sir.
Can I switch inputs, please? Does that appear to, is that how you found Paul when you arrived at the scene?
Yes, sir.
And were his hands underneath him in that fashion when you arrived at the scene?
Yes, sir.
You're all right. Have State's Exhibit 7, I believe, without objection. Without alternate evidence.
Without objection.
I'll show you what's been marked as Exhibit 7 and see if you recognize that image.
Yes, sir.
And what is that?
It's a still image of video of my body-worn camera.
Is that a still image of when the defendant said, "How you doing?" when you walked up?
Yes, sir.
Shame that we can't see some of this footage because it makes our ability to assess it harder compared to the jury. I mean, because we can't see what they can see. So if we're trying to judge Alex Murdaugh based on the way he was acting and behaving, we can't see that. That kind of sucks.
Nothing further from this witness at this time, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Here we go. This is the good part.
So, when you got to the scene, who was your supervisor?
Can you repeat that question? I couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry. But that's okay. I'll speak a little bit louder. When you got to the scene, who was your supervisor?
Sergeant Green.
Sergeant Green. And I believe Sergeant Green was instructing you all to put some yellow tape up. You did some of that?
No, sir.
You didn't do any of that?
Deputy Pruitt, yes, but I didn't know.
What was Sergeant Green? What was his instructions to you? What were you there to do? Number one, let me withdraw that question. Were you there to apprehend somebody?
Not at the time, no, sir. I was just there to assist where needed.
Assist doing what?
Whatever was needed of me.
Were you all attempting to determine what happened?
We were We there as initial responders were there to secure the scene.
Okay, secure the scene. And secure the scene for further processing by SLED?
By our investigators, I learned later on that SLED was responding as well.
So let me, by way of example, you went down to where Paul's body was. It was covered with a sheet. You see that on the video, correct?
Not when I initially responded, but yes, sir.
No, but the video we just saw.
Yes, sir.
And why were y'all, what was the road? Was there a purpose of going down there and pulling the sheet back, looking around it?
I believe they were looking for another weapon.
What kind of weapon?
I believe they were looking for a 300 blackout.
But, we saw in the picture, if you look at Paul's body, there's no 300 blackout laying next to him, correct?
No, sir.
I'm correct.
Yes, you are correct. No, there was no 300 blackout laying beside him.
Okay, so you say you're down there looking for another weapon. Where were you looking for another weapon?
I wasn't, sir. I was assisting lifting the sheet for detectives.
And you concede you stepped into the feed room.
Yes, sir.
And based on the way Paul was laying, and of course you did have a flashlight and you were looking, trying not to step on anything. Did you have anything to insulate your feet? In some jurisdictions they have little baggy things to put over their feet to make sure they don't contaminate the scene. Did you have those on?
No, sir.
And did you...
used to shoot rats for my late dad with his shotgun.
You got a flashlight.
He used to say
What
there's
you were
only
looking
two
at
things in
with the
life I
visible
am
eye,
afraid of.
you're
One
determining
is
you weren't
rats and
disturbing
the other
scene,
is your
correct?
mom.
That's correct.
You made an effort not to.
Yes, sir.
You don't know whether you did or you didn't.
To my knowledge, I did not.
But you can't say that you didn't. To your knowledge.
Can you repeat that?
To your knowledge, you didn't.
To my knowledge, I did not disturb anything.
Okay. But you would concede there's microscopic evidence sometimes at crime scenes, correct?
Yes, sir. That's possible.
And you didn't have a microscope.
No, sir.
But like the SLED crime team would look very closely, would they not? They would not. As far as I could tell, you were looking basically 3 or 4 feet away from the floor, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what you can see with the naked eye at night with a flashlight from 3 or 4 feet is what you base your opinion you didn't disturb anything.
That's correct.
Now, and you don't know why they were looking for another weapon, but you don't know what other weapon, you don't know where that weapon might have been, and again, multiple deputies had seen Paul's body before he was covered with a sheet, right?
Myself, Sergeant Green did.
Okay. Were y'all, in your presence, any of the other officers with you there that night, did any of them discuss this as a possible murder-suicide?
It's possible. It's not to my recollection.
Now, when you were going out and we saw you mark a shell casing, was that in the grass or on the dirt road?
I believe the first one was in gravel.
In the gravel, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but you found others, right?
Yes, sir.
And to do that, you had to walk around in the grass?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And again, you've got a flashlight, you're looking, and you don't know what was in the grass that you may have disturbed around those shell casings.
No, sir.
You don't know.
No, sir.
You may have disturbed something.
It's possible.
And I guess what I'm trying to ask is, why then were you trying to look for shell casings? Why couldn't you wait till the next morning? Why was this urgency? Was somebody getting away, or I don't quite understand why.
I can't answer that. I don't know. I didn't know if somebody was getting away or not.
Did somebody instruct you to go find shell casings?
No, sir.
You just did it on your own initiative?
Yes, sir.
And you concede that you may have disturbed or destroyed evidence in that process?
Microscopic or something I didn't see.
Well, microscopic, something down in the
No, you don't say that you destroyed evidence. No.
You were walking on grass.
No evidence I did that.
Right. I can see the smooth surface like in the shed, in the feed room, but it's grass at night, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I guess what I'm trying to wonder is what y'all were doing. Were you trying to solve a crime? Were you trying to just index everything was there? And when did you find out SLED was coming?
So we're trying to mark everything there. As you can tell, there were multiple units going back and forth, fire rescue as well as sheriff's office. We try to mark it so that it brings awareness to them and it doesn't become disturbed.
I'm sorry, I can't understand you. I can't hear you.
There were multiple units on scene,
Right.
sheriff's office as well as fire rescue.
Right.
The reason that I saw urgency to mark those shell casings is so that it brings awareness to those of us that were walking around and they don't become disturbed.
Well, that brings up the question, should you have been walking around? What if you got two dead people, whoever the perpetrator was, at that point y'all hadn't identified, had you?
No, sir.
Okay, so the perpetrator may be in the woods across the street as far as you know at that point, right?
Could have been anywhere.
Right. So you're not trying to solve a crime, you're processing a scene?
I'm not processing anything.
What are you doing there?
You don't know what you're doing.
I just told you what I was doing, sir.
You're marking pieces of evidence.
Yes, sir.
And the urgency to do that was so that no one else would walk over them
Yes, sir.
while you're walking around them.
Around. Yes, sir.
Well, you don't know whether you actually stepped on one or not, do you?
I was very careful not to.
Okay. Now, let me also ask you this. The pattern of the first shell casing was how far away from the feed room?
I can't say.
That you found?
The first shell casing I found?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
10 feet, 20 feet, more than me, further than?
Probably about the same distance from me to you.
Okay. From the feed room door?
Yes, sir.
Now, I understand, and you got a blackout, right?
Yes, sir.
And when you fire that, does it eject to the right or the left?
To the right. Mine does.
Okay. So if the feed room is where I am, that shell casing ejected to the right and forward, right and back? What do you know?
Are you asking where the shell casing was in relation to the door? It would have been forward and right of the door.
Forward and right of the door. And there was the pattern of casings leading, did they all lead to her body?
I can't remember.
Did you sketch where you found them?
No, sir. I did not do a crime scene sketch.
Have you ever done a crime scene sketch?
No, sir.
Tell me your training in crime scene processing.
It's very basic, limited what you would get at the Criminal Justice Academy.
Very basic.
Yes, sir.
So you're not a crime scene processor. Again, and I'm not asking this question repetitively, I'm just trying to puzzle it out. What? You don't know what your role was there.
Asked and answered.
I was a first responder.
Well, they were dead, Paul and Maggie, right? You couldn't render them any aid.
Your Honor, I would object. No question in that statement.
Is there a question?
Could you have rendered them aid? Were they in a physical condition where your assistance would have helped?
No, sir.
They were dead. Correct?
Are you asking? Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay, let me show you a couple of these clips and ask about them here, and I've got times. You don't have to go through the. I'm going to be brief. Okay, would you go to 1040? Is that green? Yes. I don't want to. Yes.
Man, I've been finding this defense attorney is really good at cross-examination.
Yeah. Broken hold. I'm awake.
Okay, this is you walking, and these are the dog pens over here to the left, correct?
Yes, sir.
And right in front of that, one of the dog pens, is a hose that is neatly coiled around a hose, something holding the hose, right?
That's what it looks like.
Okay, go ahead. Well,
How you doing? What's up?
Okay, now, this, Mr. Waters asked you about this just a moment ago when he said, how you doing when somebody walked up. You would concede to me that but for that one quip, he appears to be distraught over the death of his wife and son?
He appeared visibly upset.
Yes, okay, other than this, how you doing, sort of thing, right?
Correct.
Okay, also, we see him in a T-shirt and a pair of shorts, correct?
Yes, sir.
I've looked at your report, I've looked at everybody that encountered him that night. No report indicates any blood visible on him. You would agree with that?
I didn't observe any.
What?
I did not observe any.
Okay. It's a white shirt.
Yes, sir.
If you noted blood on him, you would have put that in your notes or reported that to somebody, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How about, let me see, 1845.
I mean, yeah, this is just looking for holes in the process, things that, you know, possible contamination of evidence, possible things overlooked.
300 blackout. 300 blood.
Stop 1 second. That's you apparently determining the shell casing you found is a 300 blackout, correct?
I'd also like to thank the court for the untreated audio in my very good quality earbuds. That's really pleasant on a personal level.
Just a couple final questions. Since I have no further questions.
Be direct.
Very briefly, Your Honor.
That wasn't a good cross.
Are you a
He
first
tried to get the
responder?
same thing on.
Yes, sir.
Your first job is safety, correct?
Yes, sir.
Second job is to protect the scene, is that correct?
Objection leading.
Yes. Finally.
Tell me what your jobs as a first responder are again.
Yes, sir. We secure the scene, make sure there's no current threat for additional first responders. We then secure the scene, make sure that nobody comes in that's not supposed to, so that we
He just sits and repeated the
preserve
question.
any evidence that's there.
Said.
It's part of your training to avoid disturbing the scene as best you can.
Objection
Yes, sir.
leading.
Still
see,
paying
of course.
attention to your primary role.
Yes, sir.
As part of your training and your experience and what you try to do is if you do see
Objection,
evidence.
Your Honor. Leading.
I'll rephrase, Your Honor.
What I tell you, baby? Every question he's been doing is
If
leading.
you are on scene and you do see evidence while you were there, what is your standard operating procedure in that event?
I would mark it
And why do you do that?
just to bring awareness to it so that it's not
There you
disturbed.
go.
Is your job to be
What-
a
what- why-
crime
Gotta keep him on
scene
the toes.
investigator?
No, sir.
You're just marking that? I'll rephrase.
He knows it's gonna come. I'll be all over it. Objection leading. Objection.
You were asked earlier about apprehending any suspects. Was Mr. Murdaugh ever in custody?
No, sir, not to my recollection.
To your observation, was he allowed to move freely?
Yes, sir.
Was he allowed to interact with people who
Objection
came to
leading.
talk to him?
Yes, sir.
Was he ever placed in the back of a police
Objection leading.
car?
Now he's just
Not that I'm
leading.
aware
No,
of.
that's
Never
not.
put in handcuffs?
He is leading
sir.
now. He's just leading all the way.
Was he being treated as a suspect when you were there?
Not that I'm aware of.
How was he being treated? Not as a suspect.
Nothing further,
That's
Your
that's
Nothing
the question.
further.
Thank you. You may step down.
I would just object, just throw off the flow, because he's flowing there. But then, yes, yes, yes. The witness is now he's just a prop.
Put the lights back up.
This judge is
The,
actually pretty
the
all right.
courtroom
I
is
like
surprisingly empty. Look at that. Like half the courtroom is empty, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll break for lunch. We will resume at 2:15. Please do not discuss the case. In recess till 2:15.
This judge is just so relaxed. It's like, we're in.
And now we have the trifecta of seal, clock, and chandelier.
I
Nate,
know. It
Nate,
was
are
like-
you familiar with the lore of seal, clock, and chandelier?
No, what I was saying before is that it's amazing because usually we either get the seal or we get the clock or we get the ceiling. Florida said we're going to give you all three, baby. Well, no, this is North Carolina, right? Or South Carolina?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
They
Yeah.
said we're going to give you all three.
I have written a narrative that is evolving and ongoing as we're speaking about the relationship between Seal, Clock, and Chandelier. Seal and Clock are in a love relationship. Chandelier is the interloper, jealous and envy, and and bringing light to both Clock and Seal, somewhat undermining Chandelier's goals. This is part of the lore that I've developed on my channel. So we have a whole thing going about their relationship at this point.
Oof.
I may be insane. That's fine. And now we're losing Seal, and we're back to bolding.
they just keep it so we get like, oh my god, what's going on?
That's right.
So
I thought
right now, I think the prosecutor's doing a good job, but right now, but it's the first two witnesses. I'm not saying this is. I couldn't, like, we're way away from a conviction right now.
Oh yeah, no,
way
for
away from
sure.
a conviction. Like there's a lot they got to clean up, because if you're talking about footprints now as a juror, I'm thinking, what the hell are they talking about? Other footprints, and they didn't check it out. And this guy, he's saying that somebody else did it, right? There's other footprints, there's other tires. What the hell was all this about? And none of that was preserved, but we got a picture of them. What's going on? Like this is not going well for the prosecution. If the standard is beyond a reasonable doubt, not just is it possible this guy did it. Beyond a reasonable doubt, there's some reasonable doubt here.
Yeah, and there's no blood on him. He's wearing a white t-shirt. There's no blood on him, and there's problems in the story. And as Murdaugh, at least on the tape, pointed out, there are potentials for other possibilities, because his son was in this boating accident that led to someone's death. So there might be motive by someone else to harm Alex Murdaugh's son, and so there's possibilities there that emerge.
And it's reasonable if the police come and you see it, and the first thing you'll think of is, hey, he killed someone. This may be for that. You know what I'm saying? These people said they would get revenge. I don't think like the prosecutors make it seem like it is just so ridiculous that he would say that. But if his son had just been involved in an incident that someone died in, then it does now start making sense that, hey, okay, the person may, that may come to your mind, like, oh my God, he killed this guy, and these people were upset. Maybe this is them. So I don't know.
Sure.
I think the problem with this case, and with all circumstantial cases, is that there are reasonable explanations for things that occur that are weird. And if the prosecution, you don't need everything to match up. You just need one juror to say, well, that you need one juror to say it's possible. From this morning, they were trying to build up his reaction was abnormal. But let's say, for instance, if you're a cop or you are someone in the army and you're coming, you see a double homicide, you're not going to react like everyone else is going to react, right? You're going to react differently based on your experiences, right? Somebody, versus a young woman or someone who may be more emotional. So they're trying to build this thing, like someone who walks in and sees their family killed won't act this way. But that's just not the case in every occasion. You know what I mean? There's a lot more nuance to that. And I think they're building up this case about what a reasonable person would do as a circumstantial case, what a reasonable person would do. But certain situations, reasonable people do different things.
Yeah, and if you assume that he is not well, I guess either way, it really doesn't matter. If he's the murderer or if he's an innocent person that's just discovered his wife, either way, he may not be what we would consider to be a reasonable person, particularly in that moment. Especially if he's the victim. If you come upon your wife who's just had your home blown off like a melon, I'm guessing that at that moment, you may not necessarily fall into the definition of what we would constitute a reasonable person.
Shock.
Right.
Shock. You could be in shock. It's funny because when we were at the DA's office, there was this one case they told us about where they got a conviction. So the cop comes home. And this is in our training. So they go in, the cop comes home and he sees his house in shambles and his wife is missing. He goes and looks around the house for the wife, can't find the wife. A couple of days later, found out the wife is dead. Right. So they arrest the cop, say he killed her. Cop was saying, well, I was working that night. I killed her. Come to find out the cop has a girlfriend and all this other stuff, right? They said the cop killed her. So the DA had essentially a circumstantial case, right? There's, this, blah, 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 blah. The car and all this other stuff. But the case actually turned on one fact. When the cop went home, right? Because we all have cell phones. When the cop went home and the cop saw the house in the shambles, the cop called the wife's sister and he called the wife's mother and he called 911. But the one person he did not call
was his wife.
So if you go home, the house is in shambles, you don't see your wife, who's the first person you're going to call?
Yeah. And he didn't call her because he knew that
she was dead. Boom! You don't even have to explain it out. Like, you came to the conclusion yourself.
Yeah.
Why didn't you call your wife, right? You called her sister. You called her mother. Why didn't you call her?
Yeah. That could be a problem. That can be a problem.
Now, that guy could be totally innocent. Right? But for the fact that he didn't call the wife.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are the problem with circumstantial cases. Something like that just falls right in, because the jury's always looking for to solve the crime.
Sure, of course.
Something like that makes you feel like you've solved it, right? It's solved. So
yeah. Yeah. So I think, these witnesses are not blowing me away. They are at best very modest evidence in favor of the state, right? Which is fine. All you need for relevant testimony legally is that it moves the needle in one direction or another. So does it make it slightly more likely that he's the murderer? Maybe, but it's very, very marginal evidence. And it's like, his behavior, and maybe we'll get more into inconsistencies in behavior. Oh, excuse me, there's audio in my ear. Give me a second.
No.
Okay. The stream was still feeding and it was in my ear. But yeah, so maybe we'll get into more evidence later dealing with inconsistencies, because apparently he said he checked for a pulse. And how did he not get blood on him if he did that? What other things he might have done and up to or arising or around that time. But so far we don't have anything that's like blowing me away. So I'm still well into the camp of not guilty, but that's okay. The state's just starting its case. So, they haven't blown me out the door.
Yeah, and I think that's what you need in this type of thing, is you need someone to kind of put it all together, because it's going to start. But I think prosecutors sometimes fail they start slow and try to end strong. And I'm always into the start strong, end strong routine. Like you start
primacy and recency.
Yeah. But they obviously they're taking you on and this is, I think they're locked into a timeline. Who's the first to get there? So you hear the first. So they're actually presenting their witnesses in the same timeline of events. This is the first guy to get here. Here's the second guy to get here. Then you're going to see the third guy to get there and all that stuff. And they're going to go through, instead of strategically placing them and say, okay, here's what happened here. Here's what happened here, to get people interested. And then you can have these dry ones in the middle. Oh, you were the first one to get there. What did you see? And then at the end, you close strong. But here, you can tell they're going through a timeline. And that's generally the way they train, because it's easier for people to understand things in a nice, simple timeline. But I wouldn't do that. I would put things, I would strategically put things together and tie it all in closing, right? Your timeline and your closing should link everything up. And that's what good lawyering is. But here, I'm not, and I don't want people to think I'm dissing the prosecutors for what they're doing, because this is standard.
No, this is fine. This is all standard.
I'm just saying I would do it differently, because I think it would just be more powerful, if that makes sense.
And then you just ask yourself, like, well, how good is your case? Like, the prosecutors are doing fine in presenting the evidence, but then you're getting into the question of like, well, you're doing the best with the evidence you have. And then you're like, well, is your best with the evidence you have good enough? Is it enough to get you past the threshold? It's like, that's the problem, right? For some of this stuff.
This is performance art too, right? It's a lot of performance art. A lot of people don't realize, it's the evidence and everything. We all have the same evidence, but it's really the way that we argue it and what's being,
of course,
and how we're able to connect those dots. And good lawyers are able to make those connections so people can easily follow. And I think here, the prosecutor, that they've made their case the easiest way to get the jury to understand what happened is through this timeline method, which we'll see how it works at the end. But as you're saying, right now, it's so slow. I'm so bored, and it seems like the defense is winning. And after the first two witnesses,
and I think the defense is doing a good
be
job at showing that there were problems with the crime scene. And as I pointed out earlier, this doesn't necessarily mean the police were doing anything wrong.
Of course,
you're in a small. You're particularly here. You're in a small county. This is a huge property. The police are coming to a scene where someone has been shot. They have to, first of all, determine if anyone needs aid. They have to check for their own security. They have to secure the scene against possible interlopers, possibly examine for evidence that could become lost or tainted or destroyed or whatever from, a bird picking up a shotgun shell, which is not exactly outside the realm of possibility, for example. So there's a lot of things that are going on. And so is it perfect? No. Does that mean the police did anything wrong? No. And of course it doesn't. But it's still like, well, let's point out the problems of this scene potentially becoming corrupted. Let's point out the problems of the tire tracks not being properly preserved. And, you're walking around and you were just using your flashlights in the dark, in the middle of nowhere. It's a 1,700-acre property, as we pointed out, right? It's in the middle of nowhere. There's no street lights. There's no other ambient light. So we're just using our flashlight to try to see what we can see. But, it's dark. So, this is realistic.
It's one of the last things that I think the prosecutor needs to also do, because again, this is still a circumstantial case. So when you got circumstantial evidence, the problem is they're trying to create this straw man. And the straw man is the, what would a reasonable person do in a situation? As we could tell, there's no real right answer to that. Not enough that's going to get somebody convicted. But someone else here, Tara TJ, she wrote, blown brains out. I ain't checking for a pulse. 911 30 times, right? But I'll tell you, that's not always the case. Gabby Giffords, right? She was hit in the head, and she was still alive, right? They checked for her pulse. So Tim checking for the pulse. So that would be my response to that, right? Because again, that's a good question, right? But then you say Gabby Giffords. Same thing happened with Gabby Giffords, and they checked her pulse, and she happened to still be alive, and they took her to the hospital and saved her life.
It's not exactly unheard of for a shot to the head to not be fatal. The skull is hard and can deflect rounds. And so it is, sometimes you get shot in the head and you live through it. It happens.
And we're talking about the scene. And also we got to talk about the scene too. Dark. They're looking with flashlights. There's no light, right? He may not have seen that. He may have just seen them on the floor and just started checking. So again, it's tough when you have these circumstantial cases because there's so many volleys that you can go back and forth. Again, I think the prosecutor should have started off strong because I'll tell you this, just like juries are regular people. And if you're watching a movie, most movies now start off with a very exciting scene, right? Either somebody's chasing somebody or something's happening, right? Because it gets you in the mood, and then it slows down in the middle. Any action movie, for instance, starts off with something very, very exciting happening at the beginning. And I think that's kind of what the prosecutors missed here. They missed that. Let me give you something exciting, let things die down, and then let me get you something exciting at the end. Because again, you want them coming in hot and leaving out hot.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. If you have it, and I really like what you said about storytelling. It's one of the reasons that on my Amazon page, which you can always check out by clicking on my link tree if you want the link, but it's one of the reasons that on my Amazon page for streaming, I have a couple books about storytelling and how to write stories for like screenplays, because that's one of the roles, especially of a trial attorney in particular. It's like you want to be able to tell the story, and so you have to think about it from a storytelling perspective. And what you said is quite right. It's like, how do you get the audience's interest? How do you, of course, in a legal case, you're more constrained because you can't just fantasize about the facts as opposed to a movie, but you still have some of the same principles permeate.
Like, for instance, like here, if there was gunshot residue on him, that's the first witness that goes up, right? And then, because they have multiple pieces of good evidence, but if he has gunshot residue, we start off with the gunshot residue, boom, 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 and then at the end, if there's something extremely, we end with that, right? Well, didn't you say this? Didn't you say this? Right? Because you can bookend those pieces of testimony and then fill it in during the middle, and that's what I mean, right? Because it'll be harder for them to cross-examine a witness, because if we start off with, say, gunshot residue, I'm just making that up, but you start off that he has gunshot residue on him.
Mhm.
And you start off with that, and you have the expert. Yeah, gunshot residue happens. This way he had that. Blah 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 blah. They're crossing him, but now you could take that anywhere, right? Well, let's start off with. Let's go back to the beginning, right? And you can start your timeline off in the middle. But now the jury's like, my God, he had gunshot residue on. Right now, the cop coming in at the beginning, it's not as hard. It's not as hard of a hit of him missing the tire tracks and all that, because like, yeah, okay, he missed the tire tracks, but the guy still had gunshot residue on him, right? That's how you kind of mitigate those bad facts of we didn't get the shoe print, we missed the tire tracks and all that stuff, right? Okay, but that stuff seems more irrelevant now because he has gunshot residue on him. Now it kind of hurt. It kind of those bad facts don't really hurt as much. But now that's all we're talking about, right? That's all we're talking about.
Okay. So one of the things I also wanted to do, because it came up in the discussion, we were talking about shotguns and we're talking about different size shotgun shells and how they work and stuff like that. So I wanted to watch
12, right?
I wanted to watch a little video describing that, if you don't mind.
I do mind. I mind.
Okay.
No, I'm just joking.
So we're talking about 20 gauge versus 12 gauge and why it is bad
16.
to mix. Well, yes, there was 16 gauge in the case at hand. And then we were also talking, at least I was talking about why it's dangerous to mix 12 gauge and 20 gauge. So I wanted to show like, can you fit a 16 gauge inside a 12 gauge? Well, you might be able to. Here's what happens if you put a 20 gauge inside a 12 gauge. Bad things occur. Let's watch this brief video.
Firearm safety is your responsibility. Hi, I'm Larry Potterfield with Midway USA.
Hi, Larry.
Let's take a look at some basic firearm safety rules. If you shoot both 12 and 20 gauge shotguns, or someone on your squad does, be very careful not to get these shells mixed. A 20 gauge shell will drop through a 12 gauge chamber and lodge in the barrel.
Yeah.
This allows a 12 gauge shell to be chambered behind it.
Yeah.
Firing the gun with a 20 gauge shell stuck in front of the 12
Pushes
can
it
cause
back.
the barrel to burst between your hand and your face.
Yeah.
For your safety, it's important to use the correct ammunition.
Yeah, and as I said, like you can wind up with some quite catastrophic peeling of the shotgun barrel, where I'll just go into full banana mode because of that. See, so the 20 gauge fits perfectly down the bore and works as a perfect stop. So now you know some stuff about shotgun safety. We're doing many things here on the stream. I'm happy to have brought you this PSA.
That's it's crazy. But the fact of the matter is, I think the 12 and 20, the 12 and 16, I think that was a good catch. Like, hey, it's 12 but 16, so it's interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh man.
Well,
a quick question. What do you think about this? So Twitter is now banning anybody who does that blue video.
Okay.
They're banning them all. So now it's like,
Okay.
and forcing people to delete it. I gotta say, Elon, if you're watching this, which I know you'll probably never watch it, but my God, man, you have the king of hypocrisy here with this free speech thing. My God, right?
And
It's like crazy.
Worldstar even deleted it from their website, which is hilarious. I was covering it with Nick Rekieta on Rumble last night, and of course, did you see my React video?
I did see it. Yeah.
It was it glorious?
It was
Did
good.
you
Yeah, it
enjoy
was good. It was good. I did enjoy it. I just. But again, Worldstar, because she's saying that. I think she's saying she was forced to do that. Is that her argument? She was forced to do that video?
I don't know what her argument is at this point, to be quite honest. It seems
It's that I know Elon and Elon has got my back, so we can erase it from the internet.
Yeah, but it is funny. Like anyone who mentions it or anyone who posts a link to it anywhere seems to be getting banned. I wonder if I just take out my critique and just title it Eliza Blue rap video commentary and critique and just be like, and put a prelude. Hi. Fair use protects the use of commentary and critique. For this purpose, I'd like to analyze this rap video and just put that thing in. Probably ban me for that too.
Yeah, they're looking again. This is you can't erase something off the internet. As soon as it goes up on Reddit, you lost it forever. But it is what it is. We'll see.
It is for sure. Okay, well, I'm going to take a break for lunch.
Me too.
We will be back at 2:00, or maybe we'll be back at 2:00. That's fine. We'll do 15 minutes of interlude while the court is back at 2:15. So that's less than an hour from now. That's 45 minutes from now to be back. This should automatically redirect you that way to the afternoon stream. When you get there, if you'd be so kind as to remember to retweet the new pinned comment. Every video gets its own tweet. And by retweeting it, you help to bring attention to the channel and stuff. So when you get redirected that way, please make sure to retweet the thing. I have been on Civil Law. Will you be joining me this afternoon, Nate?
No, I got some more work I got to do. I've been working while I've been doing this too, so it's been
Okay.
fun. But I got some things I got to do.
Well, fair enough. Maybe someone else will join us. And I do want to remind you to please check out my guest, Nate the Lawyer. He is tagged in the video description as well. Check him out. Great commentary. And also, on a personal level, a good friend, because I called him and I'm like, I'm just not really happy with the performance of my videos. And he talked to me for a half hour and gave me like a lot of information that was quite valuable. And now I have to sort of internalize it and stuff. But, it was a great conversation and a wonderful, wonderful, valuable providing of his time. So he kicks ass.
Well, I appreciate it. I'll see you in the chat later because we got to go
All
do
right,
some
guys.
work.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Bye for now, guys.